boys are going to bring the heat today.
As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the up, boys.
It's bumping right now. It's got my juice pumping, boys.
Welcome to Crunch Time Sports with Jeff Booner. Lucas, it is Monday, March 3rd. We are recapping the NFL Combine, and it's Mock Draft Monday. So we are back from a long weekend, weekend and Thursday, Friday, from Indy. So today we'll dive into what we saw from the Combine, different conversations we were having out there. Boys were trying to network. It was a lot of fun. And we'll get to Mock Draft Monday later in the show. We got a packed show today, packed week, to be honest with you, fellas. We got some great guests on this week. It's going to be a fun time, and it's time to talk more NFL draft. And then the free agency period's coming up here in not too long. So we got a lot of good football stuff to get to. Darius Slay, good example.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I'll say this too, boys. One of my highlights of the weekend is I would say I set the tone with another NFC North coach. Let them know, hey, I've got you twice a year, boys. We won't say the name, but I'll have to say I had a good conversation just making sure they knew, hey, Detroit Lions are still here to stay. And I gave them a nice little tip. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was a good weekend, though, or not even a weekend. That was like a week. It was like a full week at the Combine.
Pretty much.
So, I mean, we learned a lot. The players, man, it's interesting to get out there and see. We talk about it all the time, to be able to go out there and, like, you know, the film never lies, but then there's also these times where you see like players like really rise and really fall. And then especially like seeing who the Lions met with, being able to kind of compare that with kind of different, you know, the performances in the film, and like just putting it all together. Like, I feel like this weekend puts it all together heading into the draft. So you get a good feel for how players are and stuff. It was a good time though. We met a lot of people, boys. That was like, and you know, every year it should get better and better. So this year, honestly, I'm just going to be transparent. We really didn't get that much content this year. Like, we went into it, they're like, hey, we're going to get all this film and all this and this. It ended up turning into just like a networking weekend and seeing the players, but then networking to kind of help grow Crunch Time, which ended up being very good for the fellas.
Yeah. It was awesome. We'd be down in the hotel lobby, and there would be, like Boone said, like there'd be like an NFL coach, and like you just go say what up, and then like we'd go down and we were talking to Ian Rappaport for a little bit. It was just a crazy weekend. And just like you said, Boone, going there back, just keep building the network. It's going to bring big things for the show. So great weekend. Can't wait to unpack it. Learned a lot, boys. Learned a lot.
Yeah. Booner Insider will be continuing to grow. That will. I got some information, some advice from Ian Rappaport his own. And the insider side of Booner is going to flourish next year.
The inside of Booner is going to flourish next year.
Yeah, that sounds tough. That sounds tough. Okay.
No, it was. I mean, we talk about all the highlights of the weekend, which it was a lot of fun. We did live shows down there. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. But in all seriousness, I said this morning too. Like, thank you to you guys, because without the support on the shows, the videos, the reels, people that are Crunch members, and not just that, but people that are subscribed, comment, like, view our stuff, it helps us be able to do things like that. We always told you guys we were going to invest in the company, and we've done just that. We've been able to travel and do different things. And a prime example is to go to every day of the Combine, and it's all on the company dollar. And that's thanks to all of you people. So I want to make sure I reiterate that without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do it. And because of that, we're going to be able to grow Crunch Time Sports and bring you guys better, more in-depth content because of the people we're able to speak to. So it is huge, man. Very blessed. What's up, Boone?
I think I need to make this statement. I am team Ian Rappaport. I just need to let that be known. Team Rappaport.
Hey, I will say Ian was a really cool dude. I mean, you guys talked to him too, but like, if there's any like negative narrative out there after all this about Ian Rappaport, like, dude was such a good guy. Like, just like, you could say, 'cause that dude works so fucking hard. Like, we were talking about like being an insider like that. Jeff, you even said it's like, how do you take a shower? Because you could be in there like, just got done working out, just getting off like another call, and then you got to worry about like Kevin Zeitler back to Detroit on a 1-year like you can't even have your own personal time. Like your world revolves around the NFL and even the NFL offseason. It's like as an insider, you almost have to be double as ready because anything can happen. So shout out to Rappaport for sure.
Can we tell a couple stories? I know we don't want to give some of the names away.
I feel like some of them we can, Boone.
The ones that we've reported some things, and we legit like actually spoke with NFL head coaches, NFL coaches. I don't want to give too much away. NFL coaches and different a lot of different people. We did report some actual things. I saw some people on Twitter who were like, these guys didn't actually speak with, like, we actually spoke with coaches around the NFL and agents, different things, and we were able to put some things out. I would say, boys, we could tell some stories. I would say we can't say, we can't say those names because then people are easily going to be like, oh, this person said it. I don't want to do that. One thing I will say, and I think this is a funny story. There's actually two that I like. The first one, though, the Ian Rappaport versus Jordan Schultz thing. That happened the night before we got there. And the next night we're walking through, the hotels are connected and we're walking through to go to at the JW is where, everyone is. And we're going there and we walk through the Starbucks where it actually happens because it's on the way where that happened. There's no one in the Starbucks besides two people. I was the one that noticed it. You boys didn't notice it until we got down. I told you, Jordan Schultz in a booth there with Kirby Joseph's agent. Just those two just chopping it up. And I'm like, no one's noticed this, but like at the scene of the crime the night before, the man the next day is just sitting there. No one in there. He's in his dad's coffee shop sitting there with Kirby Joseph's agent. I was like, this is unbelievable. Like back at the scene of the crime here 24 hours later.
You know, was the other one that just made me great guy too. Well, we met Baldy.
Oh my gosh. That was probably number one.
Like number Jeff, one. I think you said it, but it was like D-Mac of the NFL. Like,
he's D-Mac.
Baldy is such a good dude, but Baldy has no idea who Baldy is. Like he thinks like they were doing. I think it was the quarterbacks. Maybe it would have been the day before, but there's like the general seating and like the middle is usually where like all the kids in the family want to go because it's where you get the best spot. And here comes Baldy just walking down, just like sitting in front of everybody. Such a good dude. And then the text, I was like, hey, Baldy, great meeting you, yada, yada, yada. He's like, yep, take notes. Like,
take notes.
It had no context as far as what I said. Yeah. What a good dude, man. And you could just tell, like, what did he say too, boys? He was like hyping up all the edges with Aiden Hutchinson. Like, he was just hyping the Lions up. Like,
he literally goes
about the Lions.
We didn't even bring it up. He starts bringing about the Lions, starts asking questions. What do you think about Terrion Arnold? What do you think about this guy? And then he looks at us dead serious. Think about Aiden Hutchinson and James Pierce Jr. together. That would be one of the best. Like we were all like, wow. And then he was serious too. He was like, and I'd heard him speak today. Like he's like, I have a list of like 30 defensive linemen that will go in the first two to 3 rounds. And he was like, he loved the defensive line class.
Yeah, he just he's just eating a hot dog on the the outside. Yeah, just eating a hot dog. He's just hanging out, chilling. He's just blending in. He very much reminds me of D-Mac. He's just with the people. Doesn't know how famous he actually is.
The best, probably one of the craziest moments of the whole weekend when we first got there, day one, walking to the combine. The guy that Jeff's on our show and on every show we've ever been on, Jeff's idol. I mean, one of the biggest Italians in football. Just right. Jeff, the boys, that was unbelievable.
It was incredible.
Sean Stiletto.
He by the way, he's that dude's a myth. I mean, I messaged him on Instagram like when he first started trending because I was like, who is this man? I mean, he walked into he was at the Lions. Was it the Lions? Yeah, with the Lions game. Fedora. Yeah. Fedora, 1950 style, everything just dripped. And everyone's like, who is this dude? You can clearly see he's a Dago. You can just clear by the look of him. And I DM him. He DMs back. Super cool. And we made some jokes about it. I mean, I even had shout out Ryan Lentz. I mean, he even photoshopped my face on his body and that suit. And I have the picture still actually. And we run into him and he's just super down to earth. He's just chopping it up. I'm like, dude, I'm Italian. I'm like, I love you. And he looked at me, he goes, you got great hair. You got great hair. And you know what? Sean saying that, That's it, boys. That
That's
that
his
was the
life.
trip.
He's I'm done.
It was cool. No, he's a super cool guy, man. Super cool guy.
That's what you talk about the beginning of the interaction.
Oh yeah, he did look like he recognized you.
Yeah,
bro.
he knew who I was.
Videos. Definitely.
He looked right. We were walking. We thought we would have to go up to him. He basically came up to us. He looked right at me and went,
super cool dude.
and he like his head nodded, points at me, and I'm like, I don't. Sean Stiletto
Points
knows who
with his
Booner
pinky.
is. Yeah, dude,
You
he was
got
a
to
good
think
guy, though.
if he's his client, he probably sees Lion stuff. He probably has seen the Kool-Aid videos. He's a really cool guy. It was just a great trip, man. It was good for the company. It was awesome. It was good for the company. We were able to talk to a lot of people, get the name out there, get a feel for the draft, and like we talked about at the beginning, today's going to be. Now that it's nice because we have opinions about players. We go to the combine to confirm those opinions, but then we get to speak to people to get other opinions. So it's valuable information. Just that's really what it is, guys. I mean, people go to the combine, and by the way, did not see Brad, did not see Dan. I mean, these guys are like ghosts. They're just
Dialed
like
in.
football dudes. They don't go to they're not at the hotel bar. They're probably at the hotel, but they're in the hotel room, locked in, or in a conference room. Like they're not hanging out with everyone else. They have one reason to be there. It's for football. So walking away, I even said it to you. I'm like, gained a ton of respect. I mean, you're seeing, not going to name names, but you're seeing some coaches that, are under the influence, hanging out, having a good time. And you just don't see that. You don't see Dan or Brad. They're just like ghosts out there.
I mean, I'll name a name.
It's just they're footballs, man. They're football.
I'll name a name.
I'll name a name, and this was an ongoing joke through the whole weekend. I'm not, I don't think he was like out there drinking and doing all this, but he was just everywhere besides watching players. Was Brandon Beane from the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
You guys know how much I love Josh Allen.
We saw him probably like 10 times.
He was on every show, every restaurant we went to, every star. Every time we were at Starbucks, Brandon Beane. Oh, Brandon Beane. Oh, Brandon Beane. Oh, this lobby, this lobby, this lobby. Oh, walking through the hallway, Brandon. It's like, man, you need to get in the film room, Brandon. Go get yourself some guys to help Josh Allen win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I respect it, man. Like I respect those guys, like Brad and them. They don't care about the fame or getting like they don't care. They're like football, winning,
followers.
Everything else will come after that. So, not that we didn't know that, but we're like, is Brad or Dan out here? No. All right. Even like AG and Ben, like you could tell where they come from, like the tree they come from. They're not out either. Just locked in. Real quick, want to shout out Phil. Thank you for the $2, Phil. Appreciate the super chat. You're the man. And yes, like we said, we're getting into it today. We're getting into risers and fallers, which we'll get to later on. Risers, offensive fallers. Same thing with defensive players, guys that stood out to us. Lions, who they should be looking at, who we think they should be looking at. But I'd be remiss if I didn't start with what happened. And by the way, we'll get to the Slay stuff, but I do want to get to this right now because you're seeing this Myles Garrett thing kind of. It's, the Lions have no interest. And then you're starting to see reports that the Lions are one of the more aggressive teams. If Brad's reached out, that's already been reported by like a ton of people, even here locally. I've seen people on air say it. Reporters, Jeff Risdon, I think, spoke about it too. And we saw Andrew Berry like talking to people there. He's out here trying to, he's talking to different people. So I'm sure he was a busy guy over the last couple of days. What do I make of it, guys? Like, I have no doubt that Brad is doing his due diligence. I think from Brad's standpoint, when people hear him say, it's probably not going to happen. Do I believe that is the end all be all? I do not, because I think smart GMs never reveal their cards. They're not dudes. Does that mean Brad's all in on Myles? Not necessarily, but I don't think anyone really has a definitive answer is what I'm saying, because you're seeing conflicting reporting. I mean, you're seeing out of one mouth, Brad might say at the press conference or say, probably not likely. And then you're seeing other reports that the Lions have called the Browns and have called them again. Now, whether or not the Browns are returning their calls or showing interest back is a whole nother thing. But the fact that Brad's interested is important. Does it mean, again, it's solidified he's coming to Detroit? No. But honestly, for me, I like that. I enjoy and I respect a GM. Not that I didn't respect Brad. I do. But I gain more respect for a GM that'll do this type of stuff. That'll constantly, hey, Andrew, what are you thinking? A couple days. Hey, Andrew, anything on your mind? What are you thinking? That to me is doing the work. Like Brad could have easily just sat back, done nothing, And it would have never been reported at all that the Lions have even reached out to the Browns, but he's doing his due diligence. He's doing everything he's supposed to do. And for that, guys, I respect it. And it goes to show that at the end of the day, no one really knows what Brad's doing.
Not even just Brad, like any GM. I think that's like the fact that the whole situation, like all of these reports that come out, especially after a week like this, where everyone's in the same spot, you never really know. And I think the thing, like with Brad, like hearing that, hey, the Lions were the most interested team at the trade deadline for Myles Garrett. That shows you something, right? Like all of the people, and I'll say it, like all of the people who tried to attack crunch time, who tried to attack all these other people around the city of Detroit, who said, hey, this is a real possibility. Whether it happens or not, it might be a long shot, but this is something to keep an eye on, like throughout the whole offseason. Like, hey, just keep your ear close to this, because if Myles Garrett becomes available, the Detroit Lions are going to be one of the first teams that are out there working. I told you guys this weekend. Excuse me, I feel like I'm losing my voice. I told you guys this weekend, I had mentioned, I said, hey, think about this, boys. Like when a guy like Myles Garrett's available, there's only a handful of teams who like financially and like when it comes to assets can afford a guy at that level, correct? Like there's only a handful of teams. Like not everyone can just be like, yeah, I'll take him. The Lions are obviously one of them. And let's say, like an example, 6 or 7 teams put their hat in the ring for him. If the Lions were one of those teams back at the trade deadline, the most interested team, and then when his reports come out that Myles Garrett requested a trade in the offseason, and again, Brad Holmes reached back out for a second time, you don't think that as soon as Andrew Berry realizes, hey, I've lost all leverage here with Myles Garrett, he's not going to play unless we trade him. As soon as that comes out, and he ends up actually taking phone calls, guess who one of the first teams on the front line there are going to have the opportunity to get Myles Garrett? That's going to be the Detroit Lions. And when I go into a DraftKings sportsbook and I go look at, hey, who are the favorites right now? They have the odds up. Who are the favorites to land Myles Garrett? Guess who's top 4? The Detroit Lions, even after the reports of Brad Holmes going out and saying it's probably not possible. Like it's probably not going to happen. That's him just not giving up anything. So if people want to take that, run with it, go ahead. Realistically, though, the last 2 times he's been available, the Lions were one of the first teams to reach out and were at the forefront of landing him. If it happens a third time here in this offseason where it's like, hey, they have to do it, they have no other choice, you would think the Brad Holmes and the Lions are right there in front. And I'll tell you what, Klotz, I'm probably sure you'll say this too. Better not let the Commanders or the Eagles, better not let them do it, because one of the things that we heard when we were down there was if the Commanders put in a bid for him and look to trade for him, the Eagles are willing to do everything to take Myles Garrett away from the Commanders going into next year. And you've already saw it today, starting with Darius Slay. So yeah, I think they're still right in the race for him.
They're going to – I think Washington, because I know they still signed Deebo Samuel and his salary isn't attractive, but they have top 5 cap space in the NFL, not to mention every team in the NFL just got a boost in cap space. But, Booner, to your point, like that's exactly why it's so important for Brad Holmes, because they're already kind of behind the 8 ball compared to some of the defensive lines in the NFL with Aiden Hutchinson coming back. Going to be fine. But even when you look at those front sevens, like the sack numbers haven't been up there consistently. You had Myles Garrett to one of those. That gap's going to widen. And I think when you look at it, like the report was like, even with the trade deadline last year, the Lions were very aggressive at trying to get Myles Garrett. They ended up with Darius Smith, but Myles Garrett is obviously a player that Brad Holmes is attracted to as far as what he can bring to the Detroit Lions. And how couldn't you as far as an NFL GM? But for Brad Holmes, if he's not picking up the phone, not trying to make it happen, he's just simply not doing his job. So I don't have too much to add outside of what you guys did, but I just think it's imperative when you compare it to the Commanders and the Eagles. Who has the lower pick in the draft? The Lions. When you look at the Lions, Eagles, and Commanders, I would say the Lions are a step ahead of the Commanders as far as a Super Bowl contender. Once they get all the defense back injury-wise, I think they're right there with the Philadelphia Eagles as Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. It's going to be the Lions and the Eagles as the 1 and 2 seed, I believe, through the foreseeable future, at least this season. We got to see what the offseason has for the Commanders if they had something on the defense and offense, but still they got to go out there and again improve it. We saw it with CJ Stroud this year in Houston. Like, you can have a really good rookie year, look like you're going to be a top 5 quarterback, and you kind of have a sophomore slump, they're still a good quarterback, but they have a top 15 type of year. So Jaden Daniels, he's got to play at that level again. Not to mention, we talk about guys like Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, those vets that were very important for him down the stretch. They're replacing them as well. So it's the Eagles and the Lions for the NFC. I like the Rams and Stafford, but I don't think they're going to be a team that's going out there and getting Myles Garrett. They're going to try to rebuild through the draft.
Did you see Dan Orlovsky say the Rams are 2? Did you see that?
You can't hate it though. I don't think when you watch what
Interesting.
Every year around the playoffs, if you want to talk about who's going to have the most wins and come out as the number 1 or 2 seed, I mean, I think even with the Rams, they can have a discussion at this point. I mean, who do you guys think is going to win the NFC West as of right now? Like, I understand there's a full offseason, but you're going to probably put your money on the Rams. And then you look at what did the Rams do against the Eagles? They actually played them very tough in Philly, in the snow. And that's a defense that was young. Like, that's a bunch of first, second-year guys on that front seven. Les Snead has won a Super Bowl without draft picks. He's had rounds 3 through 7, but now he's building a Super Bowl roster with draft picks. So they brought back Stafford. They got Puka, who I think could easily be the best wide receiver in the NFL next year, the way that he's going to get fed, and he's just talented. Braden Fisk, Jared Verse. They could add a piece or 2 in the secondary, but they're probably 3 if they're not 2.
Yeah, I think they're probably yeah.
You would say third. They're third in the NFC. You're not putting them above the Lions.
That take. I was like,
that's like one of those things. I mean, I'm the biggest Dan O fan. He's only saying it because of Matthew Stafford. Like he will do anything to boost Matthew Stafford's ego, and be on his side. Like Klotzy, I love you, but like, you might pick them to win the NFC West. The Lions are a better football team all around. They've played them like what 3? I mean, out of everyone over the last 2 years, you're like, we played them 3 times and beat them every time in the last year.
I don't want to play them again though.
You don't, but you've proven it. You're the better team than them right now, whether you have guys at it or not. So
do you think it has anything to do with losing Ben Johnson, losing Aaron Glenn versus having
the Lions are still the better team right now?
It may be with Dan. But yeah, I agree. I think they're a better team. I want to get to these 2. We got some comments here, which it's a correction. That's on me. This comment here, the actual factual information was last year pre-deadline. It was so to explain that, they reached out to the Browns at the trade deadline for Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
they obviously didn't get him. They got Darius out of that, and then they reached out to him again. So the point still stands, but I wanted to make sure that was correct. It wasn't like they reached out
twice in the last, let's say, 8 months. Yeah. They've reached out to them 2 times, and they weren't able to do anything. And obviously, the second time, Browns didn't return a phone call because we're not giving up Myles Garrett.
But you have to know, and Brad knows this, when you make that phone call, if there is a scenario where Andrew Berry goes, he knows what that price tag would be.
Yeah.
Which means he's at least willing to discuss. It's not like Brad called him like, we're going to get this guy for a 6th. Like, he knows it's going to cost 2 first. You know what I mean? So
he's willing. What this shows me, and let's just be quite frank here, Brad Holmes is willing to make those moves. You're not calling like, okay, if you call once just to dip your toes in the. He's called twice, 2 times.
Yeah,
he's willing. Brad is willing to say, I'll give up my next 2 first to add Myles Garrett to go win a Super Bowl. He's willing to do it. There's no more of a question like Jeff. Like we've always questioned, like, hey, is Brad ever going to? There's no more of that question. It's like Brad willing. He's willing to do it. If Andrew Berry picked that phone up a month ago when the Myles Garrett during the Super Bowl, the Myles Garrett news broke, and Andrew Berry picked it up and said, yes, let's do it, it would have been a done deal, and Brad would have done it. Like, this is a move that he wants to make clearly. Like, I don't know how else people are interpreting it or not. Like, is it a long shot? It is. I think the reason it's a long shot is more so because the Cleveland Browns don't want to move on from Myles Garrett. That's why I think it's more so of a long shot. Is because they're holding strong and saying, hey, we'll move forward with Myles. Like, hopefully he's all bought in. I think that's what makes it more so the long shot. Not that Brad's not willing to give up picks and isn't willing to give up assets to go get Myles. I think that's very well known now after the reports this week.
Well, speaking of moving on, there's a former Lion that
is being moved on from with the Eagles. Darius Slay will be officially released. This is the Adam Schefter tweet here. It says, Eagles are releasing 6-time Pro Bowl cornerback Darius Slay per sources if he is designated a post-June 1st release, which he was. That was the quote tweet to the other tweet. The Eagles will save $4.3 million against the cap. So the Eagles are doing this to save money, save $4.3 million. Now, this is what I said this today, and tell me if you guys agree with this. They're saving $4 million. They have got like Zach Bond, for example. They have to bring back. Like he's such a good player, and they have to bring him back. So they're freeing up some money. They did this I think it might have been Brandon Graham or Fletcher Cox. Don't remember who it was, but they released him and then signed him back on a cheaper deal.
Did it to Slay too.
I don't think they do it to Slay. Okay,
I'm saying they did.
They did, yes, but this time I don't think they do it for Slay, and I'll explain. Okay. I think they're at a different point right now as a franchise where you save $4.3 million. What are you going to re-sign him for? 3? So you did that to save $1 million, or 2, or 1? You save $3 million. I don't know. I in my opinion,
people do it, Jeff.
I know. I don't think. I think it's possible, but in my opinion, I think he hits free. I think they're either maybe the Myles Garrett thing, maybe I don't know. I think it's probably Zach Bond because he's going to command. I mean, he's a really good player, so they're going to have to get some money up for him because there's going to be teams that want to pay him. Maybe they do bring him back. But if they don't, there's one team that he would go to. He wants to play one more year in the NFL. Maybe he returns to the Eagles and plays a year. That's on the table. In my opinion, I think the Lions would be the obvious team. And he is if Carlton Davis leaves, you get Darius Slay. If Carlton Davis stays, you could still get Darius Slay on a pretty cheap deal, like a 1-year cheap deal. And he's someone that, and I said this after the season ended, and I'm still pounding the table. I don't think, in my opinion, Terran Arnold's spot should be guaranteed. I don't think it should be guaranteed. I think you should bring in, even if you do re-sign Carlton Davis, another good corner, not an expensive guy, but Darius is perfect. It's like a 1-year deal. You're not committed to him long term, to come in, make Terran Arnold better, make Ennis Rakestraw better, make your defense better. He's a good vet, good locker room guy, good culture guy. He loves Detroit, probably still has property here. It makes too much sense, and I think he would be perfect to challenge Terran Arnold and teach him, help him. He knows what it's like. He was here as a rookie in Detroit. He wasn't very good his rookie year. He got better, and he would challenge Terran Arnold. So I think either way, if he doesn't go back to Philly, he's coming to Detroit, and I am on board with it, fellas. Bring that man here. I don't care if he's not prime Darius Slay. He was still really good last year. Maybe not what he once was, but he's still a solid corner. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, I know Klotz's stance on this. I saw his tweet today, so I know where he's at with it. Listen, this is where, and Jeff, I understand what you're saying. I would have to say this. I think if you did a percentage on it, I think the higher percent would be for him to return to Philly. I do feel like it was more so, and I think he knew it was coming. I think it's more so, hey, let's save some money. I saw someone in the chat say there's dead cap involved as well. If he was cut by a certain date, there's all these other things as well. I do think hey, Philly's probably going to be his first option to return there. I do as much as I would love him in Detroit. That's probably the easiest for him to go try and win another Super Bowl in Philly, go back to back. But I'm with you. And honestly, this is the most obvious answer. He said it on the St. Brown's podcast, boys. He's the only two places I want to be is Philly and Detroit. To where, hey, if Philly ends up saying, hey, we don't want to move, we don't want to give you this next deal, and we're moving on from you, then yeah, Darius is gonna be like, yeah, I'll go to Detroit and I'll go play there and try and win a Super Bowl in Detroit and end my career. He said he has one more year in him. I just think this is my statement on it, boys, and I'm gonna be consistent with it. Love Darius Slay. My only thing is Jeff, you mentioned whether you have Carlton or not, you can have and I've heard people today say put Darius on the other side of Terrion Arnold. To me, that's a downgrade from last year. And again, no offense to Darius Slay. He is just at the back end of his career. Right now, Carlton Davis in his career is the best he's going to be. That is a dude that you're getting. You need to still do everything in your power to go get Carlton Davis. If bringing in Darius Slay ruins you getting Carlton Davis somehow, I know the prices are different. But again, with the Eagles, Jeff, you're seeing how much of a difference 2, 3, 4 million is when you're trying to re-sign guys, especially in a world in Detroit where you're trying to get extensions done. You're trying to get Carlton back. You're trying to get this guy, Kevin Zeitler, back. I just think, hey, number one priority, no matter what, needs to be Carlton. And if it's not Carlton, your backfall should not be Darius Slay. You should be going out trying to get the Charvarius Ward, like those types of guys. Like, you need someone at that level if you want to win a Super Bowl, in my opinion. Like, Darius wasn't even corner one on his team this last year. It was Quinyon Mitchell, a rookie. And Terrion, and again, I think Terrion's going to be great for the Lions here in the future. I don't think he's corner one next year. You need that. You need to go find a corner one. And like right now in his career, Darius Slay, like whether you love him or not, he's not that, right? Like he's not. So you need to go, you need a Carlton Davis. You need a Ward. You need to go get someone who can be your corner one and you can trust in the playoffs next year. Like, you need that, boys. And I don't think Darius is that. Now, if you bring him in, Carlton back, Darius, Terrion, Amik. Darius is that kind of vet presence. He knows what it means to win a Super Bowl. He's been in Detroit. He can come in there and help, kind of like another coach, but can still play, and he can still play at a high level. And if someone goes down or, you know, you have Darius Slay, like, to me, that's like what you're looking at with him this next year, in my opinion. But you still need a corner one. Like, I think that's number one priority. I think this is a good story, and it's awesome to have Darius. Hey, big play Slay back, boys. But there is a realistic side to it, in my opinion.
No, and I think that's very well said, but I don't think there's going to be much pushback. I do think it's very possible if you don't bring Carlton back that you go get a Tre'Davious Ward, a Paulson Adebo, but you can still bring in Darius Slay. And my approach on this, at least when I'm thinking about it, is if you do that and you have Paulson Adebo, again, just using an example, and you instead of bringing back Carlton Davis, Darius Slay, Amik Robertson, Terrion Arnold, that's a pretty solid 4 rotation right there. Because behind them, let's not forget, you have Brian Branch, you have Kirby Joseph. I'm sure they're going to add another corner or safety through the draft. But if that's the money you're going to spend in the cornerback room as far as not getting like a premier shutdown guy, I'm okay with it as long as you go all in on that front 7. Because Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean were good this year, but let's not act like they were cornerback ones that were elite shutdown. Like, those were still 2 rookies, good rookies, but I don't even think you could say either of those guys are like top 8 corners yet. Maybe you could make an argument for Quinyon, but I don't think Cooper DeJean you can. He had a very good playoff run, but they haven't consistently been on that basis. What was doing it for him was that front 7. So if you have those 4 at your cornerback spot and you go out and you get Myles Garrett, or you go and get 3 solid defensive ends that can give you 10 sacks, guy behind him gives you 5 sacks, guy behind him gives you 3 sacks, and you have Hutch on the other side, and the defensive interior is okay, and you see Jack Campbell take another step. I think as long as you make sure that this cornerback room is not an absolute liability, that's what this should be. I don't think there's a corner in this draft or in free agency that is really out there that's going to be a lockdown guy. So make this group respectable, where you don't have Kendall Vildor trotting out there in the NFC Championship game or the NFC division.
That's the big one right there, Claude.
I'm all for it. Because when I look at Darius Slay, boys, you know, last offseason, I was almost pounding the table for Stephon Gilmore. And that's what I look at this signing as. Not a guy that's going to go lock somebody up, but especially with Kelvin Shepard, what did he talk about? He doesn't want to run as much man-to-man. He wants to kind of loosen it up, play a little bit more zone. Darius Slay is more of a zone cornerback. And who can he help do that? Teach that to? Pretty much the entire secondary. Even guys like Amik Robertson can learn a little bit from Darius Slay. So if it's from $8 to $10 million, one year deal, I'm completely content with it, especially with the cap going up a little bit. But I get the pushback as far as what you're saying, but not even pushback, but he can't be your solution.
I'll say, well, if it's 8 to 10 million, I'm out so fast. There's 8 to 10 million's overpriced. 100%. 4 million, dude.
Yeah, I
4 million. There's no way Darius Slay gets 8 to 10 million. Zero chance.
I'd have to see. Maybe I'm being
dude, it's like 4
million,
3 million.
Because what I'm thinking of it as is like what Stephon Gilmore was when he went to Dallas, and I think he was on like 10, 11. And I believe he was like 33. And I could be wrong on the age, but that's just my thinking of like what this signing would be.
I mean, he's in his like what 15th. It was like an insane.
Yeah, but like he was like, again, if you go back and watch that playoff game against the Packers, like Darius Slay was very good, and it's because he's not being asked to be in a number 1 role. If you ask him to be in your number 1 role, he's going to get cooked. But let's say Terrion Arnold goes down a game, Amik Robertson goes down a game, Darius Slay out there for 1, I'm cool with it. And
but again, you're not paying your guy that if when your 1 or 2 corner goes out there and gets hurt, you're not paying your 3rd corner $10 million to go out there. Like Amik's your starting nickel, and he's getting like 8 or 9 million, and that's like a young Amik Robertson, like a guy that's in the best part of his career, where he's like your starting nickel right now, and if he can move outside, but he's just a solidified starter on your defense, and he's getting 8 or 9 million. Like Slay, like 8, 9, 10 million.
Where do you
like,
think the level? Again, just asking, picking your mind. How far ahead do you think Amik Robertson is at this stage in their career than Darius Slay? Because me personally, I think Amik's ahead, but not. I think
like when you're talking about like physical wise, like obviously he's ahead. Like obviously as a vet, Slay is there because he knows the game. He's been around. I just do think like I just think like there's no way Darius Slay goes into this offseason if he signs like a 1-year deal or play one more year. I don't think he gets 9 or 10 million. I can't see that world.
We'd have to see. I'm not going to fight hard on it. That's just a number
that
popped in my head.
That should entice us all to even be more on
Agreed.
board with it. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't. None of us. I don't. I mean, none of us know how much he's going to get. Like I don't think it'll be a lot. But to your point, like, could it be that? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I would assume it'd be like maybe like an incentive deal. I don't know. Maybe a certain amount of games. I don't know. I mean, who knows? I don't know what he would make. I just want the.
I'm interested to see this next year when he signs a deal. I'd be interested to see what it is. I really would, because
it won't be a lot at all.
Because if you pay Carlton, what would you pay Carlton? Like
now that's
you're paying Carlton like 19
Probably.
million, 18 million. Like you're gonna have to pay him a higher end deal, and then you're also gonna pay a corner that's not gonna get that many snaps. 10. So you're paying 30 million to those. Like that's a lot of money.
But here's the I think this is an interesting conference. Before we move on, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But Shift God put a question: What we're going to be in a bidding war with Carlton?
100%. Yes.
Can I? This is where I'm at with Carlton. I think Carlton's a really good CB1. He's probably what would you guys put him in the league when he's at his best? Like when he's healthy and playing. I would say
15.
I would say top 15, which is good. I mean, pretty good. But
at his best, probably top 10.
Top half of the league. Are you comfortable paying, let's say hypothetically, 19 million for over 3-4 years? Like, no. I don't think I am, if I'm being honest.
4 years is tough.
Like, I think that's a lot to commit to when you have guys you have to pay. And that's like the problem. Like, it has nothing to do with Carlton, the player. Love Carlton. But that's what and I don't have the answer to that. I'm just putting it out there. I'm curious what he actually will be offered, because if the Jags come in at 18, I think I'm out at that point. I don't think I'm cool with paying that man, and all due respect, that much money. Like especially when you draft a corner like Terrion. Like, okay, then
agreed. But this is the problem, Jeff, and this is what you run into with the Lions right now. Is like, again, this is the conversation we've had. Like, hey, you're in a Super Bowl window, right? Like, you have to win a Super Bowl. Part of that, especially defensively, like you do need a corner like Carl. Like you need a dude in today's NFL, in the NFC North with the wide receivers. Like you need that guy. The problem is the offseason you're in. There's not that many. Like it's not like there's a long list of corners that are available to you. There really isn't. And the only thing I keep falling back on, and I've brought this up before, boys, is you've drafted Terrion, right? Like you look at, say you split up how much you're going to spend money position groups wise. I'm sure they do it similar. Like they look at, hey, in the corner room, we have this much money edge. And then obviously how do we want to fluctuate with the money? And you know what I mean? All of that sort of thing. You do have a Terrion, Amik, and an Ennis Rakestar. Let's say just Ennis and Terrion. You have them both on rookie deals. Like especially Terrion, you have him on a 4-year or 5-year deal with a 4th-year option, right? Like you have that. To where if you do want to say, hey, this is how much money we want to spend in the corner room, we can afford to pay a guy like Carlton for the next let's say a 2-year deal, because then we don't have to worry about the Terrion contract, an extension or anything for down the line. And then if we do let's say this is what I think. Do you want me to see what I think it's going to be? A 3-year deal, 2nd-year option, to where you can opt out after year 2. That's what I would think it's going to end up being. If
Do you
I
think that's attractive to Carlton though, when he can just go get?
I don't know, but it just, to me, it's just more so like Carlton. I think if he's already in the building, he's in Detroit, you're able to make it a little bit more attractive. Hey, you can get this much guaranteed, a 3-year deal. We'll do a 2nd-year option. You can prove to us over the next 2 years for that 3rd year, and then maybe even further. But like, you have to still prove to us. He knows it coming off a jaw injury. Like, I do think he wants to be back. And especially you heard him on the podcast there, like he wants to be in Detroit. I don't think it's like, hey, take a discount. Let's take 14 million. Like, let's be a little realistic here. Like he's still going to want money, but like, how can you make it to where it's good for both sides? I think it would be like an option at some point. And then when Terrion kind of becomes corner one and you need to give him money, if he does, then you can move on from Carlton. But that's just like, to me, it's like a bridge corner. It's like looking at a bridge quarterback. It's like a bridge corner over the next 2 years, and you have to pay the money for it. until you have to pay your real corner.
And that's
what's
where
tough,
it's going to get because when you
tricky.
look at Carlton Davis, like he's not going to get healthier, in my opinion. Like I understand he might not come out and break his jaw again next year, but Carlton Davis throughout his career has never been healthy. And I think when you look at where the Lions are at financially, like in 2 or 3 years, they're gonna have to pay a lot of these guys. Even this upcoming offseason, like you look at if Kirby's gonna want to get paid, Aiden Hutchinson. It's kind of a risking your money a little bit when you're investing it into a player like Carlton Davis. To your point, guys, like he's a good player. Nobody's saying that Carlton is not good.
Player.
But you're the Detroit Lions. Like your money needs to be well spent. You have to pay for, like, get what you pay for. And if you're getting a guy that's going to be healthy 10 to 13 games and you can't promise that he's going to be healthy for the Super Bowl, that could fall into that line where it's like, okay, maybe you're not going to return on your investment and look elsewhere. Like there's younger corners that are right now are like 25, 26, and they're not to that Carlton Davis level yet, but you put them in a good scheme with a good front seven and 2 all-pro safeties behind them. They're gonna develop in this system. So I think to your guys' point though, like at some point you got to throw Terrion into the wolves and be like, you're the cornerback one. Let's see what you got. And it should just be at the start of this year, regardless of like if they were to bring in Tre'Davious Ward, like Tre'Davious Ward, I'll even look, but he's older than Carlton. He's about to be 30 years old.
That's why it's a tough spot.
You sign him to a 2-3 year deal. Like you gotta feed Terrion to the wolves. Like,
This offseason though,
him to be the cornerback one if you bring in a guy like Ward. My bad, Boone.
No, you're good. This offseason though, it's like it's not like this is a great corner. Like no, like if you have a guy already in your building, like a Meek, like and I think Brad does this a lot with some players. A Meek, like he brought a Meek in, gave him a 2-year deal, but after year 1 there was that option, and it's like go prove yourself that you can keep this thing going. And he did, and they're obviously going to keep him for this next. Like he's obviously going to be here next year. I think it's the same thing with Carlton. 2 or 3 year deal. Hey, there's an option after a certain year. Like prove to us you can stay healthy and you can keep doing this thing. And then and if not, Jeff, to your point, like at 18 million, 17 million, if not after year 1 or year 2, whenever the opt out is, boom, we'll opt out. We'll take the dead cat or the dead money or whatever. And we'll move on.
Yeah, I want to get to the combine risers and fallers here because we got mock drafts later. I want to start with offensive players. We can start with fallers first. We'll get to the negative. Let's get to the negative, and then we'll end with the positive. So offensive players in the combine that you thought, again, didn't necessarily shine. And I've already talked about my opinion on the combine. I think it's used to cement what you know about players. Okay. I'm not a huge, and Boone, we joke about it because we talked about it over the weekend. Not a huge fan of the combine. I think it could definitely, we agree, it can help players like Nick Imanawari, who came out of nowhere and had a great combine. Like it raises guys. But some guys, it hurts them because they come out and they test poorly on pretty much everything. And then you have to go back and watch tape and you're like, wow, this guy didn't test well. Why is that? A player for me, and I actually had him in a mock draft that did not test well. And I was a little shocked. Was the guy actually, Klotzy, I threw your way to get your opinion on Ricky White, the wide receiver out of UNLV.
Tough week, man.
Did not have the week I anticipated. When you watch him at UNLV, you're like, okay, the guy shows flash, he's productive. But then you go out and watch him at the combine, and he's not big. I mean, he's 6'1", but he's 184 pounds. So he's a thinner guy. He ran a 4.62 in the 40 and had a 1.61 in the 10-yard split. So, like, for a guy and he had a great Senior Bowl. So, like, that's kind of what you're going off of. You're like, well, when he plays well. That's why it goes back to, like, the film thing. It's like, what do you value? In terms of testing, he did not have a great combine. So, for my guy, Ricky White, who I was excited for, did not come out there and have a great combine. So I think a faller would be Ricky White. And I brought him up first because he was in one of my mock drafts. So yeah, his stock, I think amongst all the general managers definitely took a little bit of a hit depending on how you value it. But yeah, that's a faller for me. Ricky White out of UNLV.
Ricky. Yeah, that was me and Klotz actually were sitting there watching him together. We were like, Ricky White, what? This is Jeff's guy, and he was slow. So that's tough, Jeff. Tough one. Though I'll say this: another wide receiver. I don't know about you guys, but Tez Johnson. I know we didn't really have him mocked to the Lions or anything, but like just in general, Tez Johnson had I think he ran like a 4.51. I think his weight, boys, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's like 150.
154, yeah.
154. Like at that weight, there are guys who are like 185, 190. I mean, dude, there are like big dudes out there running 4.4s, and he's running a 4.5 at that. Like he'll get drafted and he might be decent, but that's so tough at that weight that to only run a 4.5. Like that's supposed to be like the Xavier Worthy. Like you're a small guy. The speed is what's your weapon. Tez Johnson, it's like, hey, the speed wasn't really there. So it was, I don't know. It was interesting. Tez didn't have the best day. I'll just put it that way. I don't even know, like catching the ball. He wasn't like, oh my gosh, Tez Johnson. And it was a guy that I didn't, by the way, I didn't know he was Bo Nix's brother. Him and Bo Nix are brothers.
Kind of crazy story.
Clue. Yeah, had no clue until this weekend. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, Tez didn't look good, and even like you said, like it was the one where Dylan Gabriel was throwing a deep ball and it hits him right in his hand. He just dropped, and you're
that's
like,
his QB.
Yeah.
And like that's where it goes to. Okay, the combine shouldn't affect much, but combine kind of shows like your strengths. Like Tez's strength is how athletic he is, and if you're not doing good in like the agility drills and the speed drills, and you're not showing like your hands, like it doesn't mean you're terrible, but it's definitely going to drop you down a round or two when you're weighing 154 pounds. So that's tough for him. But another guy that I think we'd all agree on, and I don't think it's a combine thing. I just think he's kind of been on the decline since the start of the season, and the combine could have been somewhere he could have picked up momentum, and he just did not look good. Ollie Gordon, running back out of Oklahoma State. I mean, you knew he wasn't going to run fast, but ran the slowest 40 time out of all the running backs, just looked stiff. And when you see him, he was coming in the season as a Heisman candidate. Like people projecting him like this is going to be a guy that runs for 2,000 yards. Lo and behold, now it's Ashton Denty in that conversation. Ollie Gordon looked like he could be coming in a 4th, 5th round pick. But with how stacked this running back class is, like there's 15 guys that could be drafted. You give grades as far as like rounds 1 through 4. Like, okay, I'd probably take these guys in there. Like it's absolutely stacked. So to have the production he did 2 years ago decline, bad combine, I really don't see how it improves at his pro day. Okay, maybe instead of running a 4.6, he's running a 4.59. But again, like he's gonna fall probably like 5th round behind, in my opinion. Like that's somebody I would like. I love drafting running backs. I would love drafting running back. I wouldn't touch Ollie Gordon after that combine, at least in the top 4 rounds.
Loved Ollie too before the season. I was a big fan.
Yeah, like
what hurts?
It sucks, like off the field stuff too.
You know what hurts him is not only the 40, because I think 40s you value for corners, wide receivers, running backs. Like that's the positions. Or maybe you look at defensive ends, like how athletic are they? Like you're trying to, judge how athletic someone is. Wide receivers probably more debatable because even some slow guys are still really good players. But the thing with Ollie Gordon would hurt him too is it was a fast running, one of the fastest running back classes. I think the average was 4.48.
The whole class went out to the combine.
Everyone's flying, and he runs. And people will say, "Well, he's 6'2", 230." I mean, there's someone that I criticized, Crenshaw Judkins, who's 220, ran a 4.4. So it's like the weight thing. It's like a dude who's basically, I know he's like an inch or two taller, but we've seen 6'3" guys run fast. So it's like, it's just sometimes guys are just not that. They're not built like that. They don't have that type of breakaway speed. He's more of a physical back. But yeah, I would agree with that. Like he definitely, he went from a guy who his sophomore season was projected like 1st round pick to like, day like 5th, maybe 5th round guy, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I would say like 4th, 5th. Maybe someone likes him a lot. They take him in the 4th or whatever. But yeah, it hurt us. Definitely hurt him. All right, let's get to risers in the offensive class. Because there are a lot of players that definitely had big days on offense. And I think one of those players, and I will bring him up because, well, I don't know. Actually, Booner, you want to go first? Because I don't want to take, there's a couple guys I want to say, but there are a lot of guys you were talking. I want to see which way you go first. And then
I think my biggest takeaway of the combine offensively, I told you guys this actually, and I even texted Doc. And I said, I think there's something I want to run with a little bit. And I hope Lions fans I think there's something behind it. When you look at this running back class, fellas, and I know you have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. David Montgomery has his extension. Jahmyr Gibbs on, his rookie deal. But, Jeff, we had the conversation all the time. Like, hey, what is it when you re-sign running backs? Like, hey, like that conversation's a hot topic around the NFL. And I had a thought process sitting there. with Brad Holmes. What is Brad Holmes really big on, boys?
I mean,
That
yeah.
BPA, right? Like
Yep.
he loves best player. And when you look at like position wise, what's the best position group in this class? You can make an argument after edge rushers or defensive linemen. You can make an argument it's the running backs. Like this running back class is so deep. I tweeted out when we were about to watch them, like 20 guys or like 15 guys. It was just like, these are all big time names that are going to be decent in the NFL, if not good or great in the NFL. And when we started watching some of these guys, I started having the realization, it's like, hey, like if Brad wants to get a guy to ever replace Craig Reynolds or ever to have that third running back there to develop over a year, 2, 3 year span to get ready for when David Montgomery's contract expires, this is the year to do it, boys. Like whether it's like the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, you can find a guy, in my opinion, in almost every single one of these rounds that you could say, hey, we could throw him in there and there's an opportunity for you to replace Craig Reynolds this year. There truly is. And I had a list of some of them. And in the conversation, and it goes back and forth, like you could say, hey, are you looking for one of those big body backs that can get you, the third down or another Jahmyr Gibbs? Like, what are you looking for? And that was the conversation I had with Klotz. We were sitting there a little bit about it. But like guys like this, and these are guys that are probably going to go 4th, 5th, 6th round, like a Jordan James out of Oregon. He ran a 4.55. He's not big like David Montgomery. He's not 220. But the way he runs, like he dominates. Like the guy he's on a different level, and he's going to come into the NFL and be a very, very good number 2 running back in the NFL for a team. Another name I wrote down, and this one's obvious, boys. And I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Bashal Tutin.
Yeah,
Virginia
whatever,
Tech,
however you
good
pronounce
try,
it.
Boone. You're going to be as correct as I am.
The Virginia Tech kid, he ran a 4.32, was the fastest out of running backs. And it wasn't, and I think I was sitting next to Clyde. I can't remember who I was talking to about it during it. Every single drill that they did, the best player in that drill was him. I mean, you had a Marion Hampton in there. You had all these guys, and it was this Tootin guy who just kept standing out. And you're like, and then every time I do a mock draft or do this, he's going to the 5th round, 6th round. I'm like, boys, like, why not? Like, think about this with Brad. Like, why not go get a guy like that in the 5th or 6th round if he's there and say, hey, we got our RB3 now. We love Craig. But, like, we got our RB3 to where when a guy like David Montgomery's contract's up, you're able to have a guy ready to go instantly. Or if one of those guys gets hurt, you have a guy ready to go instantly. And another name that I loved, and I was actually watching his film today, and I didn't even talk to you boys about him, but he had a great combine as well, is Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. Ran a 4.52. He's 215. Klotz, you're talking about a guy like a David Montgomery type who's 220. I compared Taj Brooks' combine to David Montgomery's combine. Almost every single thing was identical to him. Almost everything, except he ran a faster 40. He was 5 pounds less. You could put on those pounds over the next few years. But to me, listen, I think it's just one of those things. And I saw someone in the chat there, Tyler, said Vaki's better than Craig. Klotz did bring up Vaki as well, that he might be that next guy. But I just think it's too deep to me. And Brad goes BPA. And when there's a position group that's at that different level and you're like, hey, you need to get a guy here that you might not be able to have a deep class like this in the next 2 or 3 years, I would not be shocked, boys, if Brad says, give me a running back in the 4th, 5th round or trades up to go get a guy. And kind of get that RB3 and that next man up. Because it's just stacked. But you boys saw it. This running back class is like, it's insane.
It is. It's stacked. I'll bring another one up that I thought impressed. And Clyde and Klotzy, I think this player, and when we're talking about risers, I'm talking about guys that increase they made themselves some money. All right. And one guy I think did that is Omarion Hampton. He definitely made himself some money. Okay. I will say now, drafting in the 1st round is a different discussion, but I think in my opinion, but he's going to be a really good player. He measured in, dude. He's 6 feet tall, 220. He ran a 4.46, jumped 38 inches, broad jump 10 feet, 10 inches, and he bench pressed 225, 18 times. Like he's a workout warrior. And the thing I love about Omarion Hampton, and the thing that really stood out to me is he played obviously for North Carolina, the Tar Heels, but he ran for 1,500 with Drake May. He ran for 1,600 without Drake May. Like that to me is important, and he can catch the ball. You told me a lot about his receiving ability too, Klotzy. So I'll go with Amarian Hampton because and again, it's not. I think this class is deep. I think teams that are going to draft a running back in the first round should not. You'll get a really good player. But Amarian Hampton, he went from a second round guy, like early second, to like first rounder. He
solidified.
Gonna fall in love with him. Yeah. So
Klotz, are you going? Are you doing running back, Klotz? Then real quick, real quick before you go wide receiver, I just want to follow up with Jeff. Jeff, do you agree to Klotz too? Travion Henderson, first round draft pick potentially, early second.
Yeah, he'll be like.
He was good.
I think Chiefs sitting at where are they 31. Like, you're gonna run it back with Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, or are you gonna go get a real RB who can do it all? So I agree with you.
I don't think people and we actually spoke with the running backs coach, and he straight up told us, he said, I think and I think we tweeted out, he said, I think Henderson's gonna end up being a better NFL back than he was in college. And I think that tells a lot. Like, he's gonna be very good in the NFL. And you could see it at the combine, like he's legit.
Yeah. I'm with you, Boone. I think and we even talked to a coach there that was like, Travion Henderson, like I would put him in the top 3 running backs. I'd even put him top 2. So I think there's other people thinking that as well. But if I had to go, boys, I'll go with the wide receivers. One that doesn't pertain to the Lions, but I think really kind of stood out in a way that, okay, the perspective has changed, is Matthew Golden. Yep. Matthew Golden ran a 4.29, 4.30, whatever it was officially. But when you see that, and I would just watch him through his routes, the way that he moved, like he just makes it look effortless. And you think about this type of player that Matthew Golden is, he's somebody that's probably going to get projected in between picks 10 through 20. And you look like, let's say, I think Dallas is the perfect spot for him. If you put Matthew Golden in Dallas, I think he walks out of this draft class as the best wide receiver because, and this isn't taken away from Teteroa McMillan. When I think of Teteroa McMillan, I think of Mike Evans. When I think of Matthew Golden, I think of a wide receiver like CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. As far as what they're doing, I'm not comparing them instantly saying they're going to be that guy, but who's going to get open more? Matthew Golden. Who is going to get more catches? Matthew Golden. Who is better after the catch? Matthew Golden. Who's the better route runner? Matthew Golden. Who's bigger? Who's stronger? Who stretches the field more vertically? Teteroa McMillan. So I think when you look at the fit, like if there's a team in that first round that's like, all right, we already have our big body guy, I think Matthew Golden is the best wide receiver. I think it's a perfect fit for somebody that just needs a pure wide receiver one. He reminds me a lot of Garrett Wilson too, but I think the best comp, I told it Jeff in the hotel room before we went down for the next day for the offensive lineman, or was it the front seven? Can't remember. But he reminds me when I was watching him of like, if Santonio Holmes took the NFL more seriously, it would be Matthew Golden, like 6 foot, just absolute burner, but can do all of the route trees. Like Santonio Holmes was so good. But he just like off the field, like he wasn't all about football. He was just really athletic. We heard people like Braylon talk about it. Like, dude, he didn't even need to practice. Like he just showed up ready to go. But Matthew Golden's not that type of guy. So I think you take him in the top 15. If he falls past pick 10, you're getting instant steal. I think he walks out as a wide receiver 1. But my personal favorite, just because I had him mocked and I will definitely do so going into the future, as far as a riser in the wide receiver, is Maryland wide receiver Ty Felton. Ty Felton was somebody that I did not realize could run a 4.38. And you look at the strength of his game, like his strength of his game, it was the same thing with Luther Burden, where nobody expected him to run that fast because they're so good with yards after the catch. And you look at Ty Felton, he probably moved himself into the 4th round, and he's 6'2", 186. So the thing that's holding him back is that weight. But when you look at what he did throughout his career this year, he led all Big Ten wide receivers in receiving yards, with 3rd-team All-American, captain at Maryland. Like he has done it all. Each year he has just gotten better. And like year 1 when he got there, 309 yards. Year 2, 732 yards. This year, 1,100 yards. Catches, you go at 23, 48, 96, and touchdowns, 2, 6, 9. He just keeps getting better, and he's somebody that you can play on the outside, but he can run routes like an inside wide receiver and burn you down the field. So if Brad Holmes is like, you know what? I feel like we addressed the defensive line. Let's go get an offensive weapon, whether it be a running back. I'm okay with that, Boone. But if you give me a Ty Felton, I'm jumping up and down too, because I think that's a guy where you can, if you don't want to re-sign Tim Patrick next year and you want to move into the offseason or the regular season with Ty Felton as your wide receiver 3, I don't think you're in a bad spot. You just need to put some weight on him. But he, I think, is going to be one of the steals in this draft.
I like it. Man, you showed me the clip of Todd McShay saying that Matthew Golden is going to be the first wide receiver taken. Was that what he said?
Yeah, well, he said he's
Or
going
he
to be
said
the
the
best
best?
wide receiver
The
taken.
best. Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what
I just think it because T-Mac's like he's not bad, but it's like what's your preference? If you're the Raiders sitting there at the 6th overall pick and you're taking a wide receiver, do you want a guy that's going to give you 100 catches or do you want to get a guy that's going to give you 10 touchdowns? And I don't think there's a wrong answer, but there's a lot of NFL GMs right now looking at Matthew Golden. It's like I'd rather build my receiving core around that guy.
No, that's I mean, I mean, you want to mention him, Boone, because we're talking
Boone,
about it.
You gotta say you're haven't shut up about him.
Yeah, I want to pull him up here on my end so I get all of his stuff correct here because I don't want to. I want to give the guy his credit. I tweeted about him actually, and then hold on.
No, I can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, now I can.
Gotcha, Boone.
Did you guys not hear me there?
Yeah,
For
for
like
a
2
second.
seconds.
You're good now.
Because I brought up Alec Aomaner. Aoman. I don't know how to pronounce his name. The man is from Stanford. Electric. Like everything at the combine. I'll tell you what. Matthew Golden was. All these guys were great. He was like, this guy's legit. And I didn't never really knew anything about him. I think I was sitting there, to be honest. Jeff had at some point over the last week mentioned him, and I sat. I don't remember Jeff saying anything. I don't. And I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm looking at Klotz every time he was up. Hey, this guy, this is the dude. Like he looks so smooth out there. His 40 time, I'm gonna pull up his 40 time real quick. I think he ran like a 4.4. 4.44 straight, 4.44, 38.5-inch vertical, 10.7 broad jump. And then when you start going watch his film, the man blocks. He can run routes. I saw someone comment like, hey, he's not a great route. Go watch him. The man's unbelievable. When we were watching him on the field, he was cutting it up out there. And it was like his speed takes off. It reminds me, and this might be crazy, but a guy that plays like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who can do everything, and he's reliable, and he's fast. He's got like quiet speed. And it's like when you go watch, just go watch him. Like the boys,
You know who reminds me of, Boone?
Who?
Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, yes, just like very reliable, like extremely reliable.
Got
and I didn't know much
bro.
about him. And I'm sitting there this whole time, just like, okay. And I marked down the teams that met with the Detroit Lions, or the players that met with the Detroit Lions. And I looked down. Alec from Stanford, wide receiver, meets with the Detroit Lions. They met with 3 wide receivers. That's reported. He is one of them. And then I'm like sitting there, I'm like, this is a Dan Campbell guy. This is a Brad Holmes type of guy. You want to add another wide receiver, another weapon? This is the guy. And then all of a sudden, Jeff's like, oh, yeah, bro, I talked about him last week. That's when you know everything aligns, is when you have the same thought process like that.
Oh, yeah, no.
That's when you're like, yeah, this is a dude. The only problem is, and I'll just be quite frank, he's going to be like early second round. Like he after the combine, you could say he was like mid-second, like early second. Like teams are going to look at him and be like, hey, we need him. And he didn't have the craziest stats either last year. I think he had like 800 or 900.
Yeah, he just had that game actually. And the reason why I found out about him, and I see Malik, I'm with Malik. I Colorado I watched a lot this year, and obviously I've been defending Shedeur, but that was really the team that I watched a lot of. And you watched that Stanford game, that's where I was like, who is this guy and why is he getting open every time? And it was on Travis Hunter most of the time. So I'm like, okay, this dude is legit. And then you look him up, and to your point, Boone, like this year he had like 800 yards, but you look at the year, he had 200 yards on Travis Hunter this year. Go back a year ago. Like he was very productive. And then you go dive into his story, and he's only been playing, he's Canadian. He grew up playing hockey. He started playing football not too long ago, like late teens, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, he's I looked at Mike right when he was about to line up. I'm like, at least on tape, I didn't know the actual. I mean, I could have been easily wrong, but I'm like, this dude's gonna run fast. I mean, you watch him on tape, he runs fast. And to your point, like whoever the comment was, someone mentioned on our Twitter, like, oh, he's not a good route runner. I would like to think you've got to be a pretty good, decent route runner. And by the way,
do what you did for Travis Hunter. 100%.
You can teach someone and develop route running. What you can't teach is he already has a lot of traits that you look for. You're like, this dude can play ball. So like, yeah, you're spot on with that, with everything you just said.
By the way, too,
really good player.
Forgot to mention, I put this in my tweet, and Jeff, you brought this up to me. I didn't even put it together. Was recruited by David Shaw, the new passing game corner of the Detroit Lions. So they are very familiar with him. They've met with him. He went off at the combine. The only problem, again, is Lions pick at 60. If you want to go wide receiver and add another weapon, you're going to have to trade up to get him. Or, and this is where people would hate it, trade back and get him out of the first. But you would be taking, to get him, you would probably be taking a wide receiver first off the board. So
I wouldn't be shocked, though, Boone. I'm not saying he's going to fall, but with the amount of defensive players that are going to be drafted, and then you have running backs, and then on top of that, everyone's thinking this wide receiver class isn't great, which honestly, to your point, could mean he goes higher. But he could be in that. He could be right around that range of 60. You might be.
I think it's just a name to watch out for at that
for sure.
pick. I think there's a handful of wide receivers who could go from, let's say, 35 to 60. I know that's a big range, but I think that's realistic, especially with the way this draft class is.
All right, so we got to let's get to defensive players because we got to offense risers and fallers. Let's get the defense risers and fallers. We'll start with fallers on the defensive side of the ball. And there was some guys that, I guess when you're watching out there and we were going into the draft excited to see, and then you watch them and you're like, they don't move as well. They don't look as good. And I think a player for me would have to be, again, for me, doesn't change a ton of the assessment because on tape, the guy was pretty dominant, but faller, got to go with your boy Klotzy, Jared Ivey.
You stole him.
Oh, okay. That was
no, you're fine. Cook.
Yeah, because going into it, so Jared Ivey, going into it, you're like, okay, this guy, like the measurables check out. He's got the production. Like you were spot on with your assessment when you broke him down. And then you watch him at the combine, you're like, this dude doesn't really move as fluid as I initially thought he would. So does that mean he's just going to be a bad player? No, but I would lie if I didn't say I was disappointed. He was for sure someone I was excited because he got me fired up. I'm still fired up about him, but in terms of combine, I was like, I'm going to see how this dude performs, and definitely disappointed. So Jared Ivey out of Ole Miss would be one guy that I point as a faller in this combine.
Yeah, I'm just going to say mine. I didn't have that many, to be honest, defensively. I think there was just a couple guys who really just didn't perform well. Nick Scorton, though, was a guy to where I think just the fact that he was supposed to be a first-round pick. Yeah, and then he went out there, and me kept looking at Clyde. The man, like, it wasn't really even 40 or anything. It was really just the drills. He just did not look like it felt like he was just like stumbling around. His shoe on the pass rush drill, his shoe came off, and then he just kept slipping, and then he did it again. And he slipped again. It was just like, this is a guy in the first round that you're like, yep, we'll love. Like, I'm going to waste a first round pick. I wouldn't. The Nick Scorton thing, I think he ends up going in the second round. And I honestly do think it was because of the combine. I just felt like he just, I don't know. I don't know what it was. It was like, I don't know if he wasn't prepared or just had a bad day.
He did. He had a bad day.
But it's one of those things to where, like, he was good when he was at Purdue, and then he has the 1.5 sacks or whatever it was in Texas A&M. And a guy like him, like, you look at the Shamar Stewart, how Shamar performed. When you look at the production, you're like, at least perform in the combine to get your stock or keep your stock the same, right? He didn't. And it was like, you didn't have the production and you had a bad day at the combine. 0 for 2 right there. And like, that's tough. So you're probably a second round pick now because of that, to where like a Shamar Stewart performed, didn't have the production, but performed. He's probably going to go first round, if not higher than he was supposed to. So yeah, I would say Nick Scorton for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and somebody that kind of going along with that front seven. By the way, when I look at Nick Scorton, I literally just see Josh Pascal 2.0. That's the whole reason why I'm just like not a big fan of Nick Scorton. But somebody that I was high on, and again, doesn't mean I'm off on him, but expected more out of him, was Kyle Kennard, the defensive end that I've been raving about out of South Carolina, the defensive end for College Football Player of the Year. And when you just watch him, kind of the same thing with Jared Ivey. Like, it's not like you're like, wow, this guy looks bad, but he just looks stiff. And I think that's a lot what the combine is just seeing who's a naturally raw athlete. And Kyle Kennard, with the production that he had, I think could have really raised his ceiling if he went out there, ran a fast 40, looked agile, looked light on his feet. But he kind of fell into that Jared Ivey category where it's like, okay, we're not denying that dude can't play football, but you can see athletically he's a step or two behind a couple of names that are in front of him. To your point, Boone, you look at Shamar Stewart and you look at Kyle Kennard, there's a clear athleticism difference. And if there's a team that's starting to fall in love with Shamar Stewart, they're not even going to have Kyle Kennard on their board anymore probably. And they're going to be like, okay, we'll go around third, fourth round. Kyle Kennard probably still going to be a second-round pick, but I think combine teams could have possibly been like, okay, let's go get somebody who's more athletic, has a little bit more burst. Now went from like a top of the second round guy to middle to back half of the second round. But again, not terrible. Just somebody I don't think who helped what he was coming into the combine with.
Yeah, it's and it doesn't have to be like significant fallers, but just fallers. I think a riser for me, boys, and I'll keep this pretty short. I mean, there's not much to really say. It's pretty well known. A riser defensively, Maxwell Hairston. The corner out of Kentucky. I was excited. I didn't know he'd run this fast. I didn't, but I saw the production at Kentucky. It blew me away with the speed. He looked fast on tape, but he ran like I think a low 4.3, high 4.3. I got to double check that, but he was blazing. And you look at all the measurables, the production. He's a zone corner, but I would like to think with that speed, he's got some man upside. I mean, we'll see how that translates, but he went from kind of a third round guy, maybe late second. Maybe late second's a little friendly, but now he's for sure a early second. And I would not be shocked if someone falls in love with him late first. So I think Maxwell Hairston made himself a lot of money from the combine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably he might be the first corner off the board after that.
No, you think
First
like
corner?
I think I saw.
Corner?
Oh, never mind. I forgot about Will Johnson.
Barron?
Yeah, no, my bad. I forgot. I was thinking more so after that. That's on me.
That's fair.
Besides,
I think he's moved up. Like he is
Yeah.
like that next like dude. You know what I was thinking of someone else. That's on me.
No. You're good.
Well, I mean, who's the let me see. I got to pull my notes up here real quick. Nick Amanawari. Defensively, South Carolina safety. I saw a couple mock drafts today have him the first safety off the board now and going like I think I saw him going top 15 now. And I don't think if you looked at a mock draft going into the combine, he was in the first round. Like people talked about him, but like his combine performance was like it was like, who is this guy? And it was the size that he is. And then they asked him, they say, can you would you be willing to move the linebacker? No, I want to be a safety. And that's where it was like, okay, this guy's a dude. Like, he just wants to play his position, and his size is like, it's unbelievable. He ran one of the best 40s. Everything he did. What day was that? Was that Thursday? I think it was Friday. No, Friday. It was Friday. Everything he did, he dominated. And he's going to probably go top 20 now because of it. That's a guy where it's like combine-wise, does it help or does it – that was like, it helped. Because then you go back and look at the film, and you're like, oh, put it together. Oh, yeah. This is a dude.
Yeah, you could put that man at linebacker too if you want to. They asked him if they want to play linebacker. He's like, no, I'm a safety. So that's going to be somebody that when GMs look at, they're like, oh, is that the next Cam Chancellor? Oh, is that the next Javon Holland? But I wouldn't be surprised. Like Miami sitting there at 13. A lot of people are putting Starks there. Like I would not be surprised if you see Amawari go off the board there. But Risers boys went with somebody that I went into the combine with high hopes for, the kind of disappointing Kyle Kennard. But somebody that went in the combine with high expectations, I think met it and a little bit more, was Jordan Birch. Jordan Birch, he didn't run like a crazy 40 time, but again, the man is 6'6", 290. When you look at him, again, he does not look like he's 290 pounds, and he's light on his feet. He's athletic. He has a long-ass stride. I think he's exactly what the Lions, if they go ahead and they get defensive interior guy, offensive lineman in the first round, like if Jordan Birch falls to 60, you're getting a steal. Jordan Birch is somebody that if he's fallen in the second round, he's getting to the middle of the second round. Like I'm like Brad Holmes, go get Jordan Birch because he has the frame of Shamar Stewart, and he might not have in the 99.99999 on the Raz store. But when you look at him again, they even talked to him. Forget who was interviewing him, but he was like, who is the toughest person you had a matchup with ever through your careers? Like back in my Georgia Tech days, going up against Jahmyr Gibbs. So this is a guy that's had practice going up against athletes like Jahmyr Gibbs, goes to the Big Ten at Oregon. Think about who he's matching up there, and he came off with 8.5 sacks. And he didn't play the full season because he had an injury at Ohio State. But in the second round, that's a guy that can be a 3-down defensive lineman on the edge for you. So
by the way,
Jordan Birch is one of my favorite prospects in this class.
By the way, too, just the Oregon guys like Derek Harmon as well. Like the two main Oregon dudes. Like I know they had a couple of guys, but the two main like top dogs, unbelievable. They both. Can I throw out one more real quick? I know we have to do it. We're doing a mock draft Monday.
I hope it's gonna be.
I just want to give credit to the guy because we gave him a lot of we went at him a ton before the combine, and don't touch this guy. And I give all credit to Easy because he loves him. Shamar Stewart.
I'm still not touching him.
And what kind of sells me a little bit on it, We had a conversation. Not going to say who the conversation was with, but I will say I'll say this. It was a coordinator in the NFL. And when we had the conversation, we say, hey, what are you looking at here? You know, when you're drafting, trying to get edge, especially in this edge class, because there's so many guys. What are you looking at? He says, we typically look at production. And, you know, these guys, you know, you see Mike Green, 17 sacks. Donovan with 16.5. You see all these guys with production. If you know a guy can go out there and do that, you love that. So you know what my follow-up was, boys? Hey, what about these Texas A&M kids then and Shamar Stewart? We probably had, I'd say, like 7-8 minute conversation with this guy. The end of it, I asked that. Looks, and we said this in the show earlier. It looks me dead in the eyes. It just hits me in the shoulder and says, Danielle Hunter, boys, and walks away.
Yeah, it was just mic drop.
And we were looking at each other and we're like, all right. We look up Danielle Hunter in college. 4.5 sacks total in his college career, I think it was, or 5 sacks. It was very similar, but had all the measurables. Great in everything was there. Same thing with Shamar Stewart and him going out there and doing what he did. I think it's something to take a look at a little bit, Klotzy. And my thing with it, and we don't need to go. We've already talked about this a lot. I wanted to give Shamar Stewart a little credit and kind of take a step back on, because I think he's going to be fine. I do. I think whoever gets him in the NFL, I think he's going to produce in the NFL, because I think it was just the system he was in at Texas A&M. I truly do. Hearing more people talk about it and hearing college coaches and scouts be like, hey, go look at that Texas A&M defense. There's a reason why Nick Scorton went from 9.5 sacks to 1.5 from Purdue to Texas A&M. So that's it. Shout out to Shamar Stewart. I think he'll be a steal. I really do.
It's and actually Mel brought this up. And it was an interesting point, not just Daniil, but Odafe or Owe Odafe, I think is how you say it. The Ravens defensive end, they drafted at 31, and he's been pretty good in the NFL. Let me see. He's actually coming off, he had 10 sacks this past year. He had 7 career sacks in college. So the guys translate. I think Shamar is the most interesting prospect. So we'll see how that one.
I think, boys, I'm going to say it, like, he's going to get to the NFL within like 2 years. He's going to be a double-digit sack guy. I do believe. I think he's going to have, like, within his first 2 seasons, he's going to have 10 sacks. Everyone's going to look back and be like, oh, like, yeah, we really overlooked it just because he had 1.5 sacks his 3 years in college or whatever it was. So
I am
out. All right. Let's get to our mock drafts. I did mine earlier. I am excited to show you guys because it's post-combine. This is like one of the biggest ones, you know, besides the one that we get closer to the draft, which will be like our final mock draft. But mock draft 3.0 from the fellas. There are trades. There are trades in this one. So the fellas made some trades, moved around. And we'll see what happens here. So Boone, you want to take the lead on this, and then I'll go after you. Want to take this thing first?
Yeah,
or you want to go second? Either one. I'll just
if you want to go.
Let me go. Yeah,
first. Because you did yours this morning, and then I'll go, and then
All right. So for my mock, and I actually love this mock. I do. It's it's like picking your favorite children. I'm picking a favorite child. It's this mock. I love it. 3.0. I wish I could just do this one probably every week, but this is what I decided to do. All right, let's get to it.
Let's see it, Hefe.
Look at this mock. It's a very beautiful mock. Very beautiful mock.
Very fine mock.
Very fine mock. Let me do this real quick. All right. So decided to do here, ladies and gentlemen, is trade up again. I did this twice because I do think it's very possible that James Pierce is available in the teens, late teens. I think there are these rumors about attitude issues and all of these things that are associated with James Pierce. I don't want to believe it. It's BS. And if it is, I want my defensive lineman to be psycho. I love that. All right. Be a little psycho. And he's coming into a room with Za'Darius, with DJ Reader, with Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, Casey Rogers, Calvin Shepard. He's not going to have any room. He's gonna grow. He's gonna mature, as some would say. I love the prospect of James Pierce. Yeah, he had a really good combine, but go watch the tape. He was incredible. 6'5", he's 243. Yeah, he's got to gain a little bit of weight. Okay. He had a 23% pass rush win rate. Do you guys understand how ridiculous that number is? 43 hurries this season, 7.5 sacks the year prior, 9.5, 1 interception. Him and Aiden just, picking off balls on the edges. So you know what? James Pierce is, we talk about Shamar being an interesting prospect. I think James Pierce is up there. He ran in crazy fast 40, faster than some really good wide receivers. Okay, he's blazing. He's crazy athletic. We knew he would draft well, or test well, excuse me. And I actually want to bring something up. And this is out of left field a little bit. And I'm going to get to it in a couple of minutes here. But it's a graph. Okay, and I want to get to the mock draft, but I want to show you something before we move on. After the mock draft, so we'll keep it pushing. All right, I traded up to get James Pierce. Love this pick. It's the Cardinals pick. They trade back. I think someone said, and shout out to whoever said that. I think it might have been Malik. I could be wrong though in the chat, but someone's like, "Well, the Falcons need more picks, so maybe the Falcons like a guy at 28. There's such a deep draft. Maybe they're comfortable trading back and taking someone. But I think it's possible that someone's like, hey, I like this guy, but we can trade back to get him, and it could happen. The Lions move up, they trade away future assets, no picks in this draft, future assets, which I did trade a 7th away. But it was future picks. So it'd be next year's draft. You take a hit, but regardless, you get a really good player that can learn from some really good vets. At 60, I got your guy, Donovan Jackson, guard / tackle. He's going to be a guard in the NFL, but played left tackle after Josh Simmons went down and held his own against Abdul Carter. I'll say it again. Abdul Carter at left tackle. He didn't get embarrassed, which is important. He's a guard, and he's going into an offensive line with some really good tackles, solid tackle in Taylor Decker, but still he's a left guard, and I think that's where he's going to thrive at. This is your Graham replacement right here. You're staring at him, Donovan Jackson. A lot of teams are going to fall in love with him. They told a story about him at the Combine. I thought it was great. It gives you an idea of how he is as a person. He could have came out last year, but he decided to go back to get 1% better, at least. He just wanted to improve and get better. Highest GPA on the team, not that matters, but tells you just a smart dude, man. Intelligent human being, good football player. And I think at 60, you'd be getting a really good player here. So there you go. Future at guard, Donovan Jackson. 101, boys, this might be my favorite pick. Barrett Carter, linebacker out of Clemson.
I love him.
He is a heat-seeking missile. That's what he is. He was a Butkus Award finalist. Butkus Award finalist. That means best linebacker, by the way, in the nation. He was a finalist. Great against the run. I wrote down here, heat-seeking missile. Effective blitzer. You look at what he did at Clemson. He's a tackling machine. He's just running all around the field making plays. He'd be a really good Sam linebacker in the NFL. I think that's where his future is. Lions need one. You don't even have to bring back Derek Barnes in this scenario. Maybe you do, and maybe Barrett beats him out in a year. But I love Barrett. I think he's a great fit with the Lions. I think his game translates to the NFL level. Now, if you want to bring up some question marks, I would say man coverage. I would say there are times where, even though he's a tackling machine, there are times where he misses some tackles, which, again, happen. I think that's something you can probably clean up. But as a player, like Dabo Swinney relied on him a lot at Clemson. So he's very intelligent. Love this pick. One of my favorite picks in this draft. The 133, I'm staying consistent with my wide receiver here. A guy that I really think is a good pick in the late rounds, I guess mid rounds. Pat Bryant, wide receiver out of Illinois. Again, he didn't run the fastest 40. I think he ran in the 4.5s, but I don't care. Watch the tape, man. He does not drop balls, and he catches everything. And he has an 82.9 grade against man coverage, really good against man coverage. That's what you want. You want a separator, contested catch guy. That is what Pat Bryant is. What do we love in Tim Patrick, right? Big body, end zone, contested catch guy. That is literally what Pat Bryant is. When you see him in person, this dude is massive. Like 6'3", 200-plus pounds. He's wide shoulders, huge dude. And I think in the NFL, going to be a really good wide receiver 3 for the Lions. So hopefully they can grab him. All right, moving on. Ty Robinson, Boone, your guy. Ty Robinson, big fella, defensive lineman. He can play all over the defensive line, and you've talked about him already, Boone. He tested really well. This is your Pat O'Connor replacement right here. A way better Pat O'Connor. He's versatile. He can play the zero tech all the way to be a true edge. He can just kind of do it all. 3 tech. You can move him all around your defensive line. High motor, violent player. Violent. Very violent. That's the thing you watch and stands out to you. Very violent player. That's what Dan Campbell loves. I think they would fall in love with a guy like this. I think he's going to be solid against the run and pass in the NFL. So I really do like Ty Robinson. At 227 and 230, I actually took 2 familiar names. I love Dante Trader Jr. I've been pretty consistent with this. I think he's going to be a really good backup safety. I don't think this guy is going to be, the Kirby Joseph of the draft. But I think as a backup safety, someone you can play in spots, a really good special teamer. Like, he's someone that I just really like. He's just solid in areas you're looking for a player to be solid in, right? Sure, tackler, fluid in coverage, improved every year. You're looking for projection. And I think Dante Trader would be a really good special teamer right away. And then Tommy Hill, I mean, I'm not going to break him down like he's the next best corner, but he's a very good special teamer. Depth at corner. It's exactly what they need. So this is my mock draft 3.0. And I will say, selfishly, my favorite so far. So there you go.
Hey, I like it, Hefe.
There you go. All
I
right.
thought it was good. You know what? The Ty Robinson thing, hey, that's really coming together a little bit, huh?
Ty Robinson should be on everybody's boards.
People are starting to really talk about him. Yeah. We didn't even bring up Ty. I just figured that people knew he was going to be an absolute dog anyways, so I didn't even think I had to bring him up.
Yeah, he had a good combine, but also, I mean, has really good tape, man. I mean, the thing with Ty is like the thing with like Derek Harmon, and he has a high pad level, which that's like just the guys that are just massive. They just deal with, you know what I mean? He's just a massive dude. We got to see him up close, dude. He looks like Giovanni Manu and a defensive lineman. I mean, and Giovanni's a big dude. This dude is like that type of size. He's big dude. So, love this draft. And there's mine. We'll get to yours, Boone. Well, what do you guys think? If this happened, you guys would be happy?
Oh, I'd be. If you get James, I'll pull the Baldy. Imagine Aiden Hutchinson, and across from him is James Pierce. So you get that. I mean, James Pierce is somebody. I heard your boy Hefe Joe Klatt saying that James Pierce is probably the second most complete defensive player in this draft class, because you talk about his pass rush win rate, but then you see him when there's a running back getting out to the flats. Who's there to tackle? And James Pierce. In their bowl game, he's running back a pick 6. So the off the field issues, someone dropped it in the chat earlier. It's like we heard this about Jalen Carter, and I'm not saying that James Pierce is going to be the defensive tackle that Jalen Carter is. Obviously, I know James Pierce defensive end. I'm just saying reaching that high of a ceiling at their position. But James Pierce has all the tools to be a 15-plus sack guy. Like, you look at him, you look at Brian Burns, I think it's who they comped him to. So just those dynamic edge rushers. James Pierce has all the makeup to do that. Has great bend. Jeff, your word, bendability. James Pierce has it. Speed, burst. Height, like, he's just an athletic specimen. Just needs to put on 10 pounds. And if you put him in Detroit, you put him in Arizona, you put him in Tampa, you put him in Cleveland, he's going to put on 10 to 15 pounds. So James Pierce is somebody that I think any NFL roster could use.
You want me to tell you why I love him so much? And I told you guys a story, man. Like, accidentally stumbling upon him and watching him. Loved him ever since. You know why I love him? And I didn't even know this existed, but it makes sense. Look at this graph. Okay, this graph says edge prospects career pressure rates. Okay, you see all these guys: Nick Scorton, JT. Look at
Mike
the
Green?
top 2.
Yeah.
Abdul Carter and James Pierce. And he has a higher win rate than Abdul freaking Carter. And, oh, by the way, it wasn't at Marshall. It was at the SEC. This is what he's doing, man. So, yeah, he's in I just want to show you guys that. By the way, shout out to the follower who sent me that. Had my back. He threw an alley-oop.
Hey, you saw.
So, yeah, shout out to him. All right.
James Pierce had a big week. I got to move far away to get him.
Yeah, you know how I feel about the offensive line this year too, FA. So you get Donovan Jackson, a Donovan dog out of Ohio State, and like you said, came back, didn't have to bring him back again. Not the Graham replacement as far as going from guard to center, but if you need to swing him out there at tackle, like he's done it before. So that's, especially at 60, that's great value. And I think at some point in those first 3 rounds, it's smart for the Lions to go offensive line. So I love
Donovan Jackson too. I would say I've read a lot over the last, because we left and weren't able to watch the offensive linemen. I read a lot. Donovan Jackson at the combine wasn't the best, and then they realized, hey, he was like, I think I'm injured, and there was just like a bunch of things going on during the combine with him. Things I'm reading is like he was one of the fallers and one of the kind of the losers of the combine this weekend. So like that's a possibility. He falls to 60, and you're sitting there like, yep, I'll take him.
All right, let's get to yours, Boone. You can break it
Pumped
down.
up for this one.
All right, let's see.
Pumped up.
Boone. Thanks.
I made a couple trades too. I'm just going to be quite frank with the people. I text Jeff today. I said, I'm putting myself in the brain of Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes, his brain is, if I love someone, I'm getting them. And we've seen Brad make 3 or 4 trades in a draft. And I'm like, if I love someone and I think he's going to be a great Detroit Lion, I'm trading up to get him. So that's exactly what I did, to be honest. So I throw it up there.
What do we got, Boone?
Boom! There we go.
I love it, Boone.
There we go. There we go. This is why, too, we did risers and fallers here of the combine. And there was one guy who I think stood out. Obviously, there's James Pierce. But there was another edge rusher that, like, when you looked at what he did, you were like, oh, my gosh. He is the real deal. Donovan Izuruku. This has been my guy from day one. Love him. I think this is and the one knock on him is he's a little short. That's it. He came in at 6'2". I think guys like James Pierce, Jeff Klotz, am I wrong? Like 6'4", 6'5"?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
6'4",
he's
6'5".
Tall. He's taller than Donovan.
It's not your average edge rusher, but with Donovan Izuruku, you look at 6'2", 250. I think he rated like 248, 250. Arms. This is where you're like, okay, a little bit. 34-inch. I saw a tweet today, boys. And this guy, I was going to say this too, boys. 16.5 sacks. Peter Bukowski had him on the show. Great. Packers guy. I know a lot of people have problems with him because Packers, a lot of things going. He put out a thing today. Rashawn Gary, 6'4", 2 inches taller. Arms, 34 1/8. Donovan Izuruku, 34. Then he said, all right, let me look at this a little deeper. He said Clay Matthews. What is Clay Matthews? One of the greatest to do it. 6'3", 240. Oh, wait, what's Donovan Izuruku? 6'2", not just 6'2", 6'2.5". So he's a half inch smaller than a guy like Clay Matthews, 240. Donovan Izuruku, 248. So I don't think there's a reason to be concerned, boys. You know what I'm saying here? Like, you see where I'm going, where you're like, hey, can you produce? And then when we spoke with the kind of the coordinator around the NFL, it's like, hey, there's production. You want production. Donovan Izuruku will go out there. He literally, boys, and I think you guys can agree with me, when he went through these drills, every single thing. I just had it pulled up here. I looked at the edge rushers. He didn't run the 40, but when you look at like a guy coming off the edge, you do want some of burst, right? You want to be able to get the dip in. You want to be able to have some speed to get around to tackle, like a power, all of that. You look at the shuttle out of all edges, boys. Donovan Izuruku, he was the number one at 4.19 seconds. Burst. Number two, think about this at number two. Donovan's 4.19 seconds. The next fastest is 4.33. And we talked about this, fellas, like those 0.19 to 0.33 is a lot when you're talking about combine. Like it was like a clear difference. And then you go to the 3-cone drill, Donovan Izuruku, 6.94. The next highest, 7.06. So if you're talking about a guy that's like, hey, does he have burst? Can he get off the edge? Does he have power? We saw him at the Senior Bowl just absolutely dominate the Oregon offensive lineman, who's probably going to go in the top 30, top 35. When you see that out of this guy, it's worth getting him. I think there's an actual real world where you're able to maybe trade back just a couple picks and maybe get a little bit of capital and say, hey, I'll take Donovan Izuruku. Like I went through and did a million mock drafts on the way home yesterday to get a feel on the combine and how PFF and everything was taking it. And every time I was at 28, 30, 31, Donovan Izuruku's available. He's available. So I'm sitting here. I'm like, okay, if there's a world where Brad says, hey, I know for a fact I can trade back a couple picks, I'm taking him. Next one, that's my guy in this draft. I love him so much too. I think he's going to be great. I would love to meet him and have a convo. Next one, I don't know why I said that, but there we go.
we move.
We keep rolling. At number 49, pick 49, I did move up from 60, boys. Because I love and I think you guys agree with me on this. Jaden Higgins, what he did at the combine, I think it opened up a lot of people's eyes. And you guys were kind of like a little Booner.
Well,
relax.
tell him what you said. Tell him what you said.
I mean,
Boone.
they put a comp up of him and Nico, and I said, listen, I saw a tweet that compared like his times and his measurements and everything to AJ Brown, to Nico Collins, to DeAndre Hopkins, all these guys, and every single thing he's better than. And then it's like, okay, Jeff, what do we say all the time? Measurements at the combine, do they come together with the film? Go watch Jaden Higgins' film. He's impossible to tackle in the open field. He catches everything. I think he had a 3% drop rate, which is one of the best in the entire country this last season. And everything he does at a high level. And when he was out there, boys, every single route he ran, it was like there's just those guys really. Yeah, he's gonna be a Pro Bowler. He's gonna be a dude in the end. Jaden Higgins is gonna be a Pro Bowler at his position. And I said this. Klotzy laughed at me. I said he might be better than a guy like Nico Collins. Like he's gonna go out there. You can play him anywhere you want on the field. He'll make a play, and the yak, everything, the speed he has at his size, he ran a 4.47. Klotzy. The man's 6'4", 250. He ran out. He said, I'm going to run a 4.4. He did that, not you, Klotzy.
It makes DK's 40 even more crazier, by the way.
DK is different, but
but I'm just saying that's ridiculous. But continue.
But this is a guy though. I genuinely think if Dan Campbell, if they're sitting there and he's falling a little bit, Jeff, to the point of wide receivers, like, hey, how stacked this defensive line class is. If you're able to get a guy like a Jaden Higgins from 50 to 60. Boom, you do it. And you bring him in. I love Tim Patrick, even if you bring him in as a vet minimum, but you add Jaden Higgins to this offense for the next 4 years or the next 3, it's over. At number 70, Klotzy, shout out to you, Ohio State. I have a couple Ohio State guys here. Lathan Ransom. I was not very familiar. Obviously, I've known who he is, but not like, hey, when we watched him out there, who is this guy? Who he was dominating out there and at the combine. He just kept showing like it was just, you know what he reminds me of? This is going to sound crazy. And I said it to you boys. Maybe not the size or. And then when I went and watched the film, he played a nickel a lot. And then he also was safety, but he was like on the line. Like I'm going to play.
Yeah.
You know how iffy at the end of last year or 2 years ago just came in and was just the sacks, playmaking, didn't miss tackles, stopping the run. He just did all of that. That's where I was like, boys, this is the guy that can replace Iffy Melifonwu. It truly is. Like, if you want to move on from Iffy, you bring in Lathan Ransom at 70 or in 70 to 80. Instantly, boom, he's doing that. 101. I bet you boys didn't know I was going to pick Ashton Gillette.
Yeah, no chance, Boone. This was not on my bingo card for the day.
No one even heard of this guy. I said, I got to figure out who this guy is. I started watching his film, looked him up. Last year, he had 4.5 sacks. Year before, Klotzy, 11 sacks. Year before, 7. Year before, 4. This guy is productive. He didn't. The only issue with him, what I'll say, didn't run the 40, I don't believe. And the one question about him was his speed. People are like, hey, him coming off the edge, how fast is he truly? Is he able to get off? But the power he has, he's I think he's like 6'4", 6'5", 265, like big time dude, like big dude. Maybe kind of a tweener if you want, but I watched some of his film today. He gets off and he's like just creates, what's the word I'm looking for? Havoc.
Yep.
Great word.
Creates havoc.
That's the word.
Creates havoc. And it's just adding another edge rusher. You bring in Donovan Izuruku, then you bring another big body guy in Ashton, let him come off the edge, maybe one of those tweeners that Brad loves and Dan loves, and you bring him. He's just one of those guys, hey, collapse the pocket. You need a guy in there to collapse the pocket. That's him. Klotz, 133, another Ohio State guy, Seth McLaughlin. I was looking for an offensive lineman, and I started looking at him.
I understand that. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, Boone.
I saw a video today, a film when he was at Bama, taking on 3 guys, no Diddy, taking on 3 guys, pass pro, and I was, this is my guy right here. And then I think he got hurt last year. I think it might have been like an ACL or an Achilles, and he's kind of coming back from that. But this is just one of those guys again. I think what I'm going to do in my mock drafts, boys. And you guys can like check me if you want, say, Booner, don't do this. I think I'm just going to throw in some different offensive linemen in the late rounds. I truly do. I love Jake Majors. Jake Majors did an unbelievable job. I had him last week. He was great. He was great for Texas. But Seth McLaughlin, if you're looking at a guy for Frank Ragnow as well, I think he's another option. Him or Jake Majors, you could kind of pick your poison on this. I see someone in the chat said he won the award for best center in college football. So you kind of pick your poison on Jake Majors, Seth McLaughlin, kind of in the later rounds to replace Frank Ragnow when his time's ready. Ty Robinson, though, boys.
Come on now, Boone.
There you go.
About 3 weeks ago, we did our first mock draft, and I said, "Hey, boys, watch Ty Robinson." He went into this combine, and he was the fastest interior defensive lineman. It's not because he's too small. Boys, this guy is just an absolute dog. I don't know how else to explain him. When I called you about him when I first saw him, I said, "Hey, this guy's like the Hulk." He really is. Like he's massive. He's got speed. He's athletic, and he's a playmaker. He's gonna dominate in the middle. You put him in there when you need to get like some of these DJ Reader, Ali McNeil, need to get them some. Hey, Ty Robinson's coming in and taking over for Broderick. Broderick, all right, we'll see you later. Give me Ty Robinson every single time. And then 223, this guy, I don't think I need to explain myself with Tyler Shaw. I have people that watch us tagging me in his post. I was actually in the lobby of the hotel the day of quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. I was sitting there eating my breakfast, and I look over to my right, and guess who's sitting 2 tables over from me, boys?
Come on now, Boone.
Tyler
meant
Shaw.
to be.
And I was like, there's no way. The guy that I should have went up to him and said, hey, you're going to be a Detroit Lion. But if you're talking about a guy like, hey, Hendon Hooker, obviously this whole thing, no one knows what's going to happen. If you want a guy who's legit, can come in and be your backup right away, Tyler Shaw is climbing up draft boards right now. He had one of the best, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, boys, one of the best combines out of any position group.
I would say we love Jackson Dart and his combine, but he's saying who had the actual best combine, like who looked the best? It was Tyler Shaw. Every throw he made, Klotz was making fun of me because he was just playing catch on the side. I said, look at this guy's spiral, like tight, like look at this guy. Everything he did, it was just at a high level. The only concern is he's 26 years old. But listen, if you're looking for a backup and you're looking for a guy, hey, maybe at some point he ends up being a starter to move on from Jared Goff, this is a guy who's like ready now. He really is. Every throw he made was on the money. Every single throw. Might have missed one throw, if that, but I love Tyler Shaw. I think he's going to get whoever gets him, it's a steal. That's my mock draft, boys. Sorry, that was a lot. I will say, need to get familiar with Ashton Gelate, however.
Watch him, Klotz.
Familiar with his game. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad pick. Not familiar. I love Donovan at 32. I think that if you somehow are able to trade back and get him, that is such a steal. Jaden Higgins, round 2. I'm not in love with the wide receiver in round 2, but I do like Jaden Higgins a lot, so I would not be mad at that pick. Ransom, big Ransom guy. I think to your point, he plays very well that Iffy role. He's not 6'3" like Iffy is, but he plays like he's 6'3". McLaughlin, like I said, it's kind of risky because he was just inconsistent through the season, but you finish it out with Ty Robinson and Tyler Shaw. Love it, Boone. Good draft.
Yeah. By the way, I guess shout out. And by the way, am I pronouncing your name wrong, Malik? Is it Malik? I mean, I'm butchering
the pronunciations. We need to figure this out.
Yeah, apparently it's Gelati. That's his.
I love
name.
that. Yeah,
and then Shaw is Shuck. I guess that's interesting. Tyler Shuck. Yeah, which I would. I mean, you can't tell it's Shuck by looking at it, but now you understand.
Yeah, I actually. What was crazy?
On that.
No, me either. Because we were who were we listening to on the way back from the combine? Jeff, Todd McShay. Todd McShay kept saying Shuck too.
Yeah, no, he gets it. And then I still don't know how to say I guess Donovan Easy. You can call him
Izuruku. Izuruku.
Someone said Aku. These names are too hard to pronounce. All these names.
I like Izuruku. I'm rolling with that. I hope I get to meet him one day.
I like the easy term.
Easy. How about Easy Woo Woo? Izararu.
No, let's put some respect on that. It's Izuruku. It's either Izuruku or Izuraku. Come on, put some respect on my guy's name. Come on now.
No,
he's going to be getting us 10 sacks next year.
Yeah. Malik. Malik.
We can confirm that one.
Yeah. Malik. Man, that's it. You know what? Shout out to you for keeping us in line here with these names. All right, let's get to yours, Klotzy. Let's see what you got here. for the Detroit Lions. Klotzy, talk
Boone,
to
I
me.
loved your first round pick, and I wish it would have been the same way for mine because I got Donovan. He's a Raku. He's a Ruku, however you want to pronounce it, in mine as well. But the thing is, Boone, he would always get picked by the Ravens as mine if I stayed at 28. So I had to move in front. I traded up for him, only 3 picks. I gave up like 28 and like a third rounder next year. I made it happen. But you bring home Donovan. He's a Ruku. He's a guy that got 16 and a half sacks. Undersized, I understand. But when I watch him play, and especially when you look at Jerry Hughes was a guy who was selected 31st overall. And I think Donovan's more athletic, but he came out of TCU. He was lighting up. He had 11 and a half sacks, 10 sacks season before then, but he was a little bit undersized. But that's exactly what this Detroit Lions team needs. I think he's powerful. He can set an edge. He is undersized, but he can use that leverage when you go up against big defensive tackles because he's very powerful. Great burst, like Booner was saying. When you look at that shuttle, you can see that he's an explosive athlete. He wasn't out there looking stiff. Like, he has bendability, as Jeff would say, and he has production. And I think he's somebody that has an extremely high floor, not the highest ceiling, but I can guarantee you this man is going to pan out in the NFL and will eventually give you 10 sacks in year 1 or year 2. I love Donovan. Here's a trade that, Jeff, you might not like it, but get used to it because Hendon Hooker is going to be shipped. And I think it could be on draft night. And I went from 60 to 33. I gave up the second round pick, Hendon Hooker, and then something in the year draft. But I made it happen. I've been emphasizing that the Lions, in my opinion, need to get somebody, a replacement for Taylor Decker early on in this draft if there's somebody that you like. And I was watching Josh Connerly fall. And Josh Connerly sitting behind Taylor Decker for 1 year if they decide to opt out. Cool. If they don't, great. You have somebody developing behind them because there isn't like this is a for sure left tackle that you know is going to work out. But this is a guy that looks at Penei Sewell. Who do you think he idolizes? Penei Sewell, the best offensive tackle in the league coming out of Oregon. So having him an opportunity to develop, if there's injury, I think you're getting great value. That could be one of those things where it's like not day one, but one day. But what you do with an offensive tackle, I'm all for it in this draft just because of the struggles we've seen on the left side of that offensive line. And then out of it, I traded up again. Deion Walker, dude is massive. Okay, he's 6'7", 315 pounds, and he was able to get to the quarterback this year. He had under 5 sacks, but the year prior he had 8 sacks. And you think about in the SEC, we watched him at the combine, and you're just like, dude, he's built a little funky. I'm not going to lie. He's built like a moose. Like, he has extremely long legs. He's 6'7", like I said, 315 pounds. But this guy commands an instant double team. I think everything that the Lions were hoping that Broderick Martin could be comes into a 6'7", 315-pound Deion Walker. I think he's going to be somebody that will be available there just because he's not overly athletic. But as far as a run stopper, a zero tech, somebody that you can just be, hey, double team, clog the lane, let Aleem go get in there for a one-on-one shot at the quarterback. Deion Walker can turn into that. Jeff, somebody you actually put me on here at pick 101, Ahmad Hassanin. This man 5 years ago in 2019, just moved to the U.S., learned English. Know what the first thing he did was? Pick up a football and learn how to play ball. Ahmad Hassanin is exactly when I look at him, you go back and first of all, the only reason is that he's in this position is because he's only been playing football for 5 years. But you go back in 2023, he has 13 sacks at Boise State. 2024, this year, he has 10 sacks, and he's good against the run. Didn't grade out well at the combine. But when I look at him, I look at a George Karlaftis. You get him in the 4th round. He's been playing 5 years of football. You put him in with Casey Rogers, Kelvin Shepard, Aiden Hutchinson, Donovan. He's the Raku, like Deion Walker, like guys who have played the game before. He has all the makings to be a high floor type of guy that can come in your rotation, give you 5, 6 sacks. If you need him to, you can put him in a pinch starting spot, and he's not going to be a liability. But I think if you take him at 101, there's a lot of upside there with a high floor. He has tape, he has production, and you saw him at the combine. Like, he's walking up to the Ravens defensive line coach, and they're doing the figure 8 drill, and he's hyping him up. He's like, blow the fucking whistle. He's telling him he's getting in the Ravens coach's face. So I think when Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes see that, they want the man from Cairo, Ahmad Hassanin. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably butchering it, but hey, man's a dog. Talked about Ty Felton there at 196. I think he's a perfect guy that you can stash at the back end of that wide receiver core that can develop into something special. Not a wide receiver 1, but he definitely has wide receiver 2 upside, like I said. Led the Big Ten in receiving yards at the wide receiver spot. Got better and better each year, over 1,100 yards, and a big part of that was yards after the catch, but he's a little undersized. He's 185 pounds. So hopefully year 2, year 3, you can put 10, 15 pounds on him, get him up there to 200. he's going to be able to get down the field and be a threat for you. Boone, we both love Tyler Shaw. I got him at 227. I personally don't think he's going to be there at all. I think Tyler Shaw boosted his draft stock to be a top 3-round pick. Like, I would pick him before Will Howard, Riley Leonard, Kyle McCord. Like, Tyler Shaw, he's got some juice now. So I think like I said, I traded Hendon. In comes Tyler Shaw, Tyler Shot, whatever, however we were pronouncing it. I think he's going to be the new quarterback too. And if he did that, I'd be perfectly happy with it. Like Booner was doing with the Ohio State center. There, Dylan Fairchild, no clue, boys. I'm just throwing in a guard. There we went tackle, getting some guard depth. They got Christian Mahogany last year. So hopefully Dylan Fairchild could be that. Do not know. And somebody that I will routinely spend the last pick in my draft is Jabbar Muhammad. You look at Oregon's defense last year, very good. They did have a good front seven, but I'm an Ohio State fan. When I'd watch Jabbar Muhammad line up on Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State, you look at it like he was the best cover corner guy. Tested well at the combine, but he's somebody you put him, hey, be my gunner. Be the left guy on the kickoff return team. He can be that. I think he's just somebody, again, I look at him, project guy, but you're getting him in the 7th round, instant special teamer. So I like Jabbar Muhammad. That's my mock, boys. I went real heavy in the front 7 in the first 4 picks, if you couldn't tell.
Ahmed. Yeah, that dude. He's
demon, dude.
Yeah, he's that dude's so easy. I'm just so intrigued by him.
I said it Saturday or whenever we did after we did the edges and we did the show. It might have been Friday night. He's a Dan Campbell guy because like every single drill, when he did the one drill with the I think it was the Ravens D-line coach, he was like screaming at him, like in his face, like getting pumped up, ready to go and do the drill. And when you see a guy like that, and then he's like running in front of everyone, like he's a worker. He's a worker, and he's good, and he's got the like all of the traits you need and the athleticism. Like he has everything, and he has the hard work. So he's gonna end up being good in the NFL. He will.
Yeah, we got Klotz, we got our first we got a comment here. Well, first I want to acknowledge Nobody. Appreciate the Crunch membership for 2 months. He says, very early mailbag, absolute worst pick for the Lions. Which one? You know, you got to be more specific. You
Probably first round, I'm sure.
And then Tyler says, I like the logic and knowledge, but this is a terrible mock draft to me. We move up from 28 to 25, then we move up from 60 to 33. Then after that, we somehow get pick 81 and still retain pick 101.
We make moves. We make moves on this side. You understand? I try to get Donovan so many times at 28, and it just repeatedly.
He was there for me every single time.
Ravens would take him every time. I was like, okay, I'm going to trade up 2 picks with the Texans because I think it goes like Vikings, Texans, Packers, or something like that. There's a lot of NFC North teams there, so like, okay, I'll try to be realistic. Go with the AFC team. Get my guy. Cleveland.
I don't know what you're using over there. Are you PFF?
No, he says he loves the picks. He just didn't understand he's like I don't know how you maneuver.
Hendon Hooker and a 2nd round pick from next year to move up from 60 to 33. And then I traded like a 3rd or 4th to get Ahmad.
I think after what Tyler Shuck, I guess after what he did at the combine, there's no way he's got to be a top 4 pick or top four round.
Oh, yeah, no, he's gonna go early.
Top 3, maybe top 3 rounds.
I think as well too. I can't remember where I picked Ty Robinson. Ty was like every time, like if I ever did a thing, and when you looked at his, average draft position, it was like 250, 230, 240. I ended up like I got an F on his grade, but it was because like there's no way a Ty Robinson's available after like pick 200. He's gonna go 185, 170. Like he's gonna go early. So I kind of tried. I tried to stay realistic, and I just went and got guys where I kind of felt like they're gonna start falling to a little bit.
All right, get your mailbag questions ready. Because anything has to do with the mocks, anything Lions related, doesn't matter.
Quick show, boys.
Yeah, no, it was a good show. We feel like we covered a lot of the good stuff about the combine, and yeah, we still have, like I said, we have guys coming on the show this week with scouting experience. I mean, Russ and Scott Bischoff. I mean, these guys are draft gurus, and they're coming on the show. So this week's going to be a big week. I cannot wait for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Malik says PFF grades need some therapy.
Yeah, it's odd to me. Sometimes I'm like, I killed this pick, and then it'll be like D+. I'm just like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Like
mean,
I felt like my draft was an A. Like if I'm sure Lions fans, if my draft, I would think they would be like, yep, that's like I would love that. I think I might have got like a C on the draft, and it was like this was a great draft. Jaden Higgins, Donovan Izuruku, Rocco. Sorry,
Feel sorry.
He's a Roku. He's a Roku.
Oh, let's see. Jay-Z says, Brad has shown he will trade up for a dude that is sliding. Who are your top 3 dudes Brad would trade up to get in the first round?
James
we
Pierce.
Give one. We don't got to go top 3. Just give one guy. Mine would be James Pierce.
I think Klotz, and I love you. You would be lying if the number one guy, if James Pierce starts to fall, Brad would trade up very fast for James Pierce.
You guys, hey, you have your piece. I have mine. Mine, if Josh Simmons falls past pick 15, you go and get him. That's your pin A for the Josh Simmons is a top 10 prospect falling in this year's draft. The Lions will never be in a position to go get a Josh Simmons ever again. You get him.
Yeah.
Name Josh Simmons for the next 10 years sounds amazing to me. So does James Pierce and Hutch does too. Not gonna lie there, Boone. But defensive edge.
Klotz, you need a partner with what did Baldy tell us? Aiden Hutchinson, James Pierce. No one would be able to stop him.
Yeah, it's tough. I love the player. I love Josh Simmons. I do agree with your take. He is the best. If he's healthy, he would have been the first one off the board, not even really a debate. But I don't know if the Lions would go get him. Maybe I'm proven wrong.
I'm not saying that they will. My thing is, who would I go up there?
Yeah, you Klotz, but you also are a guy who preaches next year going in, you have to win a Super Bowl and you need an edge rusher, and passing up on a James Pierce over him, that to me, that's like a
Jordan Birch.
See, this is where all right. It's not realistic,
we differ in opinions as far as like I just think you can get 2 or 3 edges. Yes, James Pierce is the best out of them, but you can get 2 or 3 edges that can be very good for you in the future. But you can get an elite offensive tackle duo, which I think when you go up against elite defensive edge duo, that's a great thing to have when your quarterback is Jared Goff. That's just my thinking of it.
Yeah, I said this morning too. If they take like a Jahad Campbell, me and Spenny had this debate, like. If they take a guy like Jahad Campbell at 28, but they draft a really good edge at 60 or trade up and get a pretty good edge, I think I can deal with that.
Swallow the pill.
So I guess
by the way,
consistent with Josh Simmons. I wouldn't. If you gotta give me someone in the second though. I gotta be happy.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. The trenches are where you gotta go.
By the way,
first 3 rounds.
Yeah, but again, if you get a guy that's going to be like a potential Pro Bowler at the edge position with Hutch, like that's what you've been with. Like, Klotz, you're the guy that's like, give me Myles Garrett. Okay, you have a guy like James Pierce there. Like, it's just like for me, it's just like picking and choosing. Like, pick a side, stay on it. If you don't want an edge, like that's just what it is to me. That's literally all it is to me. I'll say this: Jahad Campbell too. By the way, after his combine, will not be. I don't think he'll be available at 28. I really don't. There's no way. You had to like really trade up to get Jahad Campbell. He was going to go in the top 20. But I genuinely think that. I don't think he makes it close to 28. You would have to move up.
Now, Austin says, Mailbag, what do you guys think about Landon Jackson? I think Landon Jackson, I'm going to be honest. I don't really know what to make of Landon Jackson. I just thought I don't know, like looking at him,
like his aura. I like his aura. I love his aura.
I don't know. I'm like indifferent. Like he just looks like he's built just built weird. You know what I mean? Like,
he's a dog though. He is an absolute dog.
He's just built like it's a weird build. Like he's 6. What is he? 6'6"?
I don't know. Watch some Landon Jackson film though, Jeff, and let's talk about it tomorrow. That's your homework.
Can.
That is your homework.
Let's see. All right. But last one here. ETN, aka Both a Lie. Mailbag, what is your walk out of the room pick for the Lions? For me, I would say, I mean, it's easy to say this because it's like they'll never do that, but that's the question, I guess. Walk out of the room.
Nick scoring.
It would I would have to be like a different position. Like if they took like a wide receiver or something, I guess. How about this? Any offensive player besides a tackle, I would walk out of the room.
Oh, Patrick put it perfect. Corner. If they take a corner, I cannot. And I saw a mock draft today that had the Lions taking a corner. I genuinely, I'm just gonna be quite frank. if that happened and you used last year's first round, last year's second round, and this year's first round on a corner, and you don't end up having like legit corner one, like a Quinyon Mitchell, I don't know what I would do, to be honest. Like that would be it for me. I think that genuinely would be it.
Did your mock drafts have Will Johnson falling? Mine had him like fall into the Buccaneers
20s maybe.
One time. I was like so
21?
what would let's go down the hypothetical. Will Johnson starts to slide because everybody loves Jahdae Barron, and then the South Carolina safety goes 13th. Like, would you move up for Will Johnson? No, right. I'm asking. I don't know. That's why I was like, I don't know if I would. I'd love to.
I just
but
a
it's
corner
just like,
to me. It's just like,
Hey,
that's where you get into like need. I guess Will Johnson right away.
Yeah, Will Johnson. We can agree. He's like,
and then you don't have to bring Carlton back. And you
but
just go
you know what? I got a
Slay.
player. I was dodging it with a question with like positions. I'll give you a player, Jalen Milroe. You take him at 28. I'm walking out of the room.
That would never happen. That would never happen.
Well, I don't. He's asking walk out of the room pick.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that would be the pick.
honestly, you want me to be honest, boys? Membu
No,
out
actually, I
of
don't.
Missouri would be pissing me off. Like if you take 28th overall, Membu, the offensive tackle from Missouri, and you didn't move up to go, like that would make
Membu. I saw a mock draft today.
You might go.
He was the first offensive lineman off the board at like 8
I
or 7 or 8.
hate that.
He had like one of the best combines out of any position group.
He's
he
good.
like dominated.
That's fine. There's no way you put him above.
Membu
Will
at
Campbell,
28.
Josh Simmons, or Kelvin Banks.
Klotz, if you would trade up for the Ohio State guy up into the top 20, you would take Membu at 28.
Yeah,
this is
I
where
would
your
not.
logic is very flawed.
Give me Josh Connerly. I like Josh Connerly at 20. I don't like Membu.
End the show. I'm
all
done.
right, we'll get out of here. Appreciate you all.
Gibberish.
Don't forget this week, big week, man. We got scouts coming on, Doc coming on, talk some Lions. So please subscribe, continue to support, get your merchandise, by the way, officialcgsports.com. We got a bunch of stuff on there. Beautiful things. All right. But until tomorrow, we will catch you all. We will see you later. Peace.
Peace.